item is under consideration. Persons wishing to address the board on matters not on the agenda should raise their electronic hand in the Zoom platform during that portion of the agenda. Please be advised that board members cannot respond to comments regarding a non-agendized item during public comment. When it is a speaker's turn to comment, the board president will call on that person. Staff will unmute the speaker. All speakers are requested to state their full name and affiliation with the district, if any, at the beginning of their comments when they are invited to speak. Board policy ordinarily limits the time to be devoted to any single agenda topic to 10 minutes, and individual speakers are ordinarily limited to 3 minutes. If the board decides to expand the amount of time to be allocated to a particular agenda item because many speakers wish to address that item, the board may reduce the time allocated to individual speakers to 2 minutes or to 1 minute as appropriate in order to permit more speakers to comment. The board will announce the amount of time to be allocated to each speaker before public comment on each particular agenda item begins. The time allocated to each speaker will be displayed on the Zoom screen. When a speaker's time has expired, staff will mute the speaker. Staff will not notify speakers that their time has expired, so speakers should monitor their own time carefully. Okay, with that, we're ready to move on to the roll call. Ms. Louisa.
Student Trustee Nori. Trustee Dubois.
Here.
Trustee Jin. Oh, sorry.
Here.
Trustee Ginn.
It's all right. I'm here.
Trustee Stevenson.
Here. Sorry about that.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
President Sarver.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Great. Okay, that brings us along to the approval of the agenda. If anybody wishes to move any things, or if not, I will welcome a motion for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, that's 5-0. The agenda is approved. That brings us to item 6, the report out on closed session. And in closed session, no action was taken. This brings us to item 7, the approval of the consent agenda by roll call vote. The consent agenda is approved by a board action to approve these items, which is taken simultaneously with one motion, which is not debatable and requires a unanimous roll call vote for passage. The action indicated on each item is deemed to have been considered in full and action taken as worded therein. If a member of the board, the superintendent, or the public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed on the regular order of business. The motion would be to waive the reading of the consent agenda, accept the reports, adopt the resolutions, and approve other items. Are there any movements or requests to pull items?
Without objection, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, can we have the roll call, please?
Trustee Dubois.
Yes.
Trustee Ginn.
Yes.
Trustee Stevenson.
Yes.
Trustee Thompson.
Yes.
President Sarver.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And this brings us to what is always our favorite part of the agenda, the superintendent's special recognitions.
This is definitely one of the most enjoyable parts of a board meeting. So we have the privilege of recognizing 2 award-winning individuals from Carlmont and from Woodside tonight. I need to make sure that I move somebody over real quick. So we'll start by recognizing our second Jefferson recipient award winner, Miss Kea for the program she created to support ESL students. I will ask Principal Burbank to share some words on this recognition.
Thank you, Superintendent Leach, and good evening to the board members, and welcome to the board to the new members. Awesome to see staff and parents teachers on board too. So Kea Gupta is a Jefferson Award winner, and she won because she's got the brain of a scholar, but the heart of a servant. Kea is a senior at Woodside High School, and she was recognized for a Bay Area Jefferson Award and also featured on the local TV on channel KPIX. She began a second language tutoring program website named Ariba before the pandemic and took it virtual with volunteers, serving even more students when campus dismissed in-person learning last March, 10 months ago today. She was motivated by translating proper weightlifting technique for a Spanish-speaking student learner in her PE class. Ariba, the brainchild and all the work of Kea, is now serving 70 local students, not just Wildcats, through online student and adult volunteers. I look forward to Kea's graduation. Of course, I might let her go. But more importantly, I look forward to her future service and the ideas that she has that are really solution oriented. So congratulations, Kea, on your Jefferson Award and on tonight's superintendent recognition. She's as a panelist. And so I would like to let her know that I have the ribbon lei to be able to put around her neck. It'll be in the mail to you, sweetie. Kea, would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you so much it's such an honor to be a part of this call, and thank you so much for this recognition. I am really looking forward to continuing my work with Ariba. I am so proud of, it's my baby, it's taken off so much. I'm so proud of the progress that it's made, even on a grand scale, but also just seeing how I'm able to help so many students and seeing their progress. It's really fulfilling and replenishing. And now I'm working on expanding and trying to get the word out and helping more students as I can. So I'm really looking to get more tutors and also students joining the program, not just within the district, but outside of the district as well. So if you guys could spread the word, that would also be superbly helpful. Again, thank you so much for this recognition.
Absolutely, Kea. And I love that word. I'm going to stop saying unprecedented because who needs to hear it? But I like your word replenishing. I think we all need a little replenishment, and I'm going to make that my mindset for the rest of the week. Thank you, Kea, and congratulations.
I would agree, Principal Burbank. We need some new words. Maybe Kea can come up with another word for pivot. That would be my next one I would like. So now we get to recognize one of my parent advisory council parent extraordinaires, I would refer to her as, and that is Michelle Kelly for receiving the Emily Garfield Award for her work with the Parent Project Series, among other accomplishments. I would like to ask Trustee Dubois to please share more with us about the significance of the Emily Garfield Award as she sits on the Oversight Committee. And following that, I'd also like to ask Principal Crane to speak about her work at Carlmont.
Thank you, Superintendent Leach. I'm very honored to say a few words about the Emily Garfield Award and Michelle Kelly. I like, Diane Burbank, what you said about the heart of a servant, so that certainly applies to Michelle Kelly as well. I have been involved with the Emily Garfield Award since it started, and I think that was about 12 years ago. And it goes every year as part of the Kent Awards to a person that exemplifies the model of Emily Garfield. Emily Garfield was a pioneer in her days. So decades ago, she was a leader in the area of social emotional learning when nobody was talking about that, and also mental health support for students. So each year, a person is chosen who exemplifies that model. This year, it's the first time the award has gone to a parent. I was not able to judge because when it was our district, so I had to pull out of the judging, but I was able to do the interview. And I did not know Michelle Kelly, and that's because as a school board trustee, I'm not really involved in my kids' school, Carlmont. I have to kind of pull away, and I'm involved in other things. Everybody else knew Michelle Kelly. All of Belmont knows about Michelle Kelly's work, and all of Carlmont. So I was new to her work, and I was blown away when I did the interview. She was very deserving, and I'm very excited to now know her. But I think I'll turn it over to Ralph because you did the nomination, and I think what you will say is very important. So go ahead.
Well, thank you. I still remember the first time I had a conversation with Michelle 4 years ago. Her son was attending Sarah as a freshman and was considering transferring to Carlmont. And she was wondering, should we do that at the end of the year? Should we do it mid-year? And I must have been on my game that day, had one of my better days, because I guess I convinced her to bring him on at the semester. So second semester, freshman year, is when Spencer transferred over to Carlmont, and it was the best thing that happened to Carlmont. Michelle, the work she does with the Parent Project is what got her nominated for the Emily Garfield Award, and that project is something that we've been looking to get more resources to parents over the years, and she took this project on and had the model from the county and just took off with it. Parents were there on a regular basis. She was there every day. She was making sure there was food there, making sure the doors were open, making sure the speaker was there. So she organized everything for this project. And it was really important. The lessons some of the parents learned and the connection to the school, I think, was really vital in the success of the program and the success of those students. Michelle Kelly's work goes beyond just that, though. She is the PTSA president. She did not sign up for that role originally, but circumstances led to us needing somebody, and she did not hesitate to step right in. And I'm so glad she did. PTSA was in a transition, and there was some drama, I would say, as in some programs, and she just squashed all of that. And the program, PTSA, has not thrived any more in the recent years, more than it has with Michelle at the helm there. She's also part of CAF, which is Carlmont Academic Foundation. So she does a lot of work organizing and supporting the efforts of CAF and fundraising for the academic programs at Carlmont. So if she needs to do attendance, she does attendance. If she just does everything. And she is amazing. When you say that everybody in Belmont knows her, that is absolutely true. So she also helped organize the graduation parade that we had through Belmont. Started at the Belmont Sports Complex last year when we couldn't have the graduation. She was instrumental in the planning and the organization of all of that, getting the students the signs for the graduates to put on their lawns. She helped organize, buy, and deliver all of those signs. So the Emily Garfield is just the tip of the iceberg as to how important Michelle is at Carlmont, and we couldn't be happier that she has chosen and transferred over to Carlmont. So thank you, Michelle, for everything you do. And I can't say enough about how the work is impactful for us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I am, it was such an honor to receive the Emily Garfield Award, and it's an honor to be recognized this evening. Superintendent Leach, I really enjoy, being able to serve our district with you, and Principal Crane, thanks again for all of your support. I think about, I had said for the Emily Garfield, the thing about parenting tools is that there are essential things that you need to learn, right? Boundaries and appropriate consequences, they're vital. But it's so critical with this parent support program to be part of a village and to know that you're not alone in your struggles. Even AP students have difficulties, right? And the idea that they don't is just a myth. And so, you know, knowing you're part of that village, knowing that you have the support of our school and our administrators and other parents, frankly, that become your network, it feels more important than ever. So thank you for supporting our work. We'll continue to grow and adapt the program and address all the challenges facing the families of the at-risk teens. And Ralph, you have me for one more year after this, then I'm all done.
We'll see about that.
Anyway, thanks so much, you guys. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you again.
Okay. Great. And that brings us now to student trustee comments. And our student trustee has not been able to join us tonight. So we'll move on to comments from the Sequoia District Teachers Association. Ms. Salvatore, do you have something for us? You are on mute.
I like to provide that little service to everyone so that I'm the first one who can get that out of the way. I want to wish everyone a happy new year. We hit the ground running, meeting with the district this past Wednesday with another meeting set tomorrow, looking at an agreement for how we can ramp up and when we will be able to offer more in-person options and instruction for students, on top of getting just jumping right in with our both feet to teaching right away. It was a startling experience for many teachers who are used to having a couple of professional development days to stress those academic muscles before standing or sitting in front of students. And then in addition, in carrying through the theme of exceptional Woodside students, SDTA was contacted by current Woodside student Maeve Merwin and her climate emergency team. And they presented us with what they are calling the climate emergency statement and resolution. And which I know has been communicated as well to the board. At our legislative council meeting yesterday, our representatives discussed it and determined that we as an organization are resolved in support of it as well, and that we wanted to communicate that to the superintendent and the board and encourage them to take the students up on the option to have it agendized at a future meeting so that they can present their very worthwhile work to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Ms. Salvatore. Happy New Year to you as well. And I particularly appreciate the comments about that student committee. That will be something that I will be bringing up in the agenda setting section at the end of this evening, which is great. And let's move on to any comments from Ask Me this evening. Ms. Horton, do you have something for us?
Good evening, everyone. Sorry for the blank screen. I'm in a bit of a pickle with my scheduling. You guys got me in my vehicle, so I can see you, but you can't see me. How's that? Yes, we are all excited to get back into this second semester of the school year. It's been a very not trying, but a very difficult election season, as we all know. We had a lot of boots on the ground for the Georgia, and we did a lot of volunteer work on that, and we're happy with the outcome. A lot of the voices were heard, and we're thankful that's over. we're just looking forward to January 20th. Hopefully that will be a lot more peaceful than the January 6th at the Capitol in each state. So I'm looking to just get our new leadership in office. Aside from that, all of that activity, we focusing on Sequoia. Everything is just running its course. We began scheduling with Jacqueline our LMC meetings. Tomorrow is our first one. So looking forward to checking in with her and just looking forward to a nice school year or the remaining of the second semester. So happy to see you all, and that's about it. That's all I have. I don't know how to mute myself now, so if someone can mute me.
Okay, thank you very much, and that has been done. So that brings us along to public comment, and I have already done a wonderful reading of the directions for public comment. So they still stand throughout this time. This period is for speakers wishing to address the board on topics that are not on the agenda. So if anybody in the audience has a public comment for an item that is not on the agenda, please raise your blue hand at this point and we will recognize you and hear from you. And I am currently not seeing a flurry of blue hands appearing. So we will move on to the items of our agenda, and we can take any comment for any agendized items when we get there. We do not have any information items this evening, so we'll be moving on to our discussion items, and we will begin with item 13.1, our COVID-19 update.
Yes, good evening. Happy New Year and happy second semester. Last Friday, I attended several state budget meetings to hear the latest and greatest from the governor on next year's budget, as well as his Safe Schools for All plan. Although I left with some good information on the budget, for information that was shared for the Safe Schools for All plan left me a little frustrated. All of the information we have at this time is vague. His plan focuses again on TK to second grade, leaving no guidance to secondary schools. Metrics were shared out regarding testing for staff and students when the 7-day average is above 28 cases per 100,000. Today, we are at 59. These new requirements around testing would make our ventilation challenges look like a walk in the park. I had a call with the County Office of Ed this afternoon to check status of our reopening plan. Because we are the first Union High School district to submit a plan, they are needing more time to review. The California Department of Public Health is currently updating their school industry guidance policies, which should be released later this week or early next week, which the county has asked that our school reopening plan is updated with those new guidelines. It is unclear how high school reopenings are supposed to be monitored by the County Office of Ed and the state under the governor's new guidelines. So the county superintendent is working on getting a call with Tony Thurman to talk about that guidance since we are trying to get our plan for reopening approved. I am scheduling a meeting with them to review all of the above mentioned topics. And I accept this opportunity to guide the conversation and decisions around us being the first high school to submit a plan and get our county to approve our opening. We have completed our Cal OSHA required plan, and it is posted on our website. That was a pretty big lift with the new laws that went into effect January 1st. Vaccines are on the horizon. We have confirmation that educators are in the 1B group and are awaiting for more information. Our cohort attendance is down, which unfortunately is tied to the amount of positive cases we have within our community. Sites are reaching out to see how we can help our students that are unable to attend these cohorts. So we'll have some updated information, hopefully at the next board meeting for you. For perspective, November cases within our school district were at 23 that were reported to us. In December, they were at 22. And on the 13th day of January, we are already at 57. So to kind of give perspective how 13 days in, we are already seeing the effects from activities that occurred over the holiday break. From discussions with the county health department, they expect to see these cases continue to rise through around the first week of February, and then they anticipate it leveling off. With so much unknown right now, there's so much out there in the ether. I'm waiting for so much information from the governor so that we can implement and continue to move forward on reopening. I wanted to change course with the COVID update. And so I wanted to invite some of our Carlmont family to share their experiences with distance learning thus far. So Principal Crane, I know you have an awesome group here. I think you have some staff and some students.
Yes, we do. We have several staff members and we have a couple of students. I think it would be good to hear from the students first, if that's okay. Hoping they're in the room. We can hear from Matthew first. If you're there, can you unmute and let us know and introduce yourself and then talk about your experience?
Ralph, can you hear me? This is Gay.
Yes.
Matt actually got in touch with me later today. He's actually on campus in his sports conditioning pod cohort right now. And he's going to contact me when he got home, and I would tell him at that time if he still had time to sign on. But I think that in itself is testament to draw of the sports conditioning cohorts. Matt himself has expressed to me his appreciation for that. And I actually have spoken with both his parents, and they also talked about how the football conditioning cohort has been a normalizing factor in his life this year. So I apologize that Matt isn't here, but I think he has a pretty darn good excuse.
Yep, I would think so too. That's all right. We can be flexible. And if he shows up or if he contacts you and he logs in before we're over, we can have him, close it out for us. That would be a good finishing statement. So how about Emily? Is Emily here? If you are, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and let us know how it's going. Emily Kosman? No? Okay, well, if she shows up, we'll go to her. We'll go to Plan B here. I'll just go in order that I have the names written down. Genevieve Tepp, are you here in the room and ready to speak?
I am here.
All right, Genevieve Tepp is our choir teacher
like I'm
extraordinaire.
always here.
Yeah, you are always around, aren't you?
Yeah.
Choir teacher extraordinaire, and she will go ahead and kick us off.
Hi everybody. I did not. I was going to do like a big formal video and everything, and then Ralph said, no, just tell us what you're doing from a teacher standpoint. So that's what I'm going to do tonight. So, teaching choir online has been a little challenging this semester, last semester, to say the least. But I think we've done some really great stuff, and I'm getting really great feedback from the kids and the community. We put two big performances online last semester. One was our Yule log, which I thought was the cutest thing ever. Kids, kind of did on their own. They chose solos to do and stuff, and they loved it. They had so much fun doing that, and the kids are learning a lot about sound editing software and recording software and stuff that we would never do normally, that are actually skills that they can take with them. It's things that like professional musicians use all the time, but usually maybe you don't learn till like your third or fourth year of college. These kids are like going away to school knowing all this stuff already, which is really cool. And we also were able to put together a virtual winter concert too, with like, the little boxes of their faces singing and doing all that video editing. I would say that most challenging thing for me, and I think many of the other teachers, some of whom that I'm looking at right now on the screen that I know really well, who have little kids at home, it's a big challenge teaching at home, incredibly challenging teaching at home with, I've got a 3.5-year-old who's watching PBS right next to me right now. But I am thankful for having the opportunity to teach at home because I'm still able to have really authentic, honest conversations with my kids. And if you were ever a drama kid or choir kid or band kid in high school, you know how important that is. The academics is only about half of it in our classes. So for visual and performing arts teachers to be able to have these conversations and see the kids' faces and everything is really, really, is really, really heartening. And we've made some great relationships. I'm using Pear Deck every single day. I think it's a hugely important tool. The kids like it. I like it. It gives us great formative assessments for the kids. And I have a really fantastic group of colleagues, both at Carlmont and other choral directors who we've been leaning on through, of all things, Facebook, just to share curriculum. So that's another really positive thing that's come out of this, is that I have a tribe of middle school and high school choir directors that we all create curriculum together and send it to each other. So I've stepped into this semester really thinking really, I think we're going to do some really great stuff. That's not to say that we don't stop every couple of class periods in choir and just sort of vent about how we miss seeing each other and actually singing together, because it's very, very different online. It's very different online, but I'm thankful to have all of my kids in one place. I'm thankful that all of my kids are healthy, and that I'm able to, keep my little guy here with me healthy and safe. So it's been really, really challenging, but I do definitely see a lot of silver linings, and I think we're gonna get through this year okay. I see kids smiling, and I think we're gonna be okay. It's not ideal, but we're making it work, and I'm proud of the work that we've done so far.
Great, thank you. Are we saving questions to the end on this, Crystal?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. Next, I will introduce Julia Shulman, who is our art department chair. And, if you ever get a chance, please log into her class page, because it is really cool to see all the links, all the things that she's done. When students first log into Canvas, they see this page of her and her memes and all these links, and I think it's really unique. So, Julia, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Julia, thank you for that great introduction. I think I could share my screen, because what I was going to do is share with you guys what I made for the class. So the first thing that I was worried about at the beginning of distance learning was, how do I create that classroom feeling? How do I know the students come into my classroom and they smell the art and they see it around them, and they come in there and it's a safe space and the music's on. How do I somehow recreate that? Like a place for them to be an artist. The second thing that was really concerning to me was, how am I going to connect with these kids online? It was something that just seemed almost insurmountable, and it was really terrifying for me. If I was going to grade how it's going so far, I'd give myself a solid A. I really think that we're doing great. And a lot of the teachers at Carlmont are doing great. And no, it's not the same as being in the class. And no, there's things that I can't do that I could do. I can't teach a lot of art history. I mean, I don't have the time. But, the kids are coming every day, and they're smiling, and they're there. And I'm so proud of my students. I'm so proud of them having that resilience, and that, and I'm noticing that I'm doing a lot of pure teaching. I don't have to manage 160 teenagers every day, moving in and moving out, 5 Broadway shows a day. I'm doing just pure teaching. And so let me see if I can share my screen. I can, and so I will. Can you guys all see this? This is my visual arts classroom. And so this is what I put together. And I really have to do a shout out to Jen Tepp on this one, because she's the one that got me started on this. I saw hers on Facebook and I was like, damn, I need to do one of those. So every day when my kids come to class, they go to what we call the VAC. And this is the VAC. And they have everything in here. Every single thing in here is clickable. Every single thing. So, I mean, you know, if you want to learn, if you want to click on the carpet, guess what? You're going to go to a PowerPoint about carpets. I mean, I went a little berserk, but you know, so today, you know, so every day they come in and they know what their work is. So they have to just click on this and they get their daily work and they know exactly what they're doing. And not only that, they have a worksheet that goes with it. They have another worksheet because this is kind of complicated. They have the PowerPoint where I you know, put pictures of they're doing collages, and then they have a demo video. And like, I did a demo video for every lesson. This would be kind of, now is how to kind of start planning your collage. Now, again, a collage is, okay, so that would be like a quick kind of thing on that. And then any kind of YouTube videos that I kind of curated that they might want to look at to learn more. So every day they come to work, and they have that. My second class, my illustration class, for instance, is doing logos. So again, they have the worksheet, a PowerPoint, a demo video where I demonstrate how to do it. And then they have other demo videos and stuff that they can look at. So it's really been good. And so the class structure is here. The weekly schedule is available every week. The projects that we're doing is right here. If you want to learn about Banksy, you click on that. If you want to know our supplies, which we've given them, I'm almost done. And then after that, I put up 3 walls of artists because I can't do art history. So every single one of these artists has a 20 to 30 page PowerPoint behind this. And you click on any artist and you can learn about that artist. And so, and their Wednesday asynchronous assignments is usually to look at an artist and say, what'd you like? What was your favorite piece? Why did you choose this artist? Tell me more about this artist. And that's their usual asynchronous assignment. So they have all this access to some really, really cool artists. So there's 3 whole walls of this stuff. As you can see, my kids are grown. And then and then this was the student recommended gallery. This is a gallery, again, each artist here has 20 to 30 pages. And this is what the students themselves have recommended. So I put up a wall for theirs. And then final, last but not least, the student art gallery. So instead of hanging it in my classroom, I just hang it in the gallery. And then they can see their peers' artwork. So as you can see, just by the artwork they're giving me, and I'm going really quickly because I know I don't want to take up too much time. But I mean, it's pretty cool as beans. I mean, they're doing really beautiful work. And, you know, so all of my kids get a chance to do this. And I have not seen a lack of creativity or anything. I mean, it's just beautiful stuff. And so I'm really proud of them. And so this is what they have available to them. And how did I do and really quickly, the way that I did the connections is I introduce an assignment and then I give them time to do their work in class because I don't want to give them extra work. But during the time they're working, I ask them to breakout rooms, and I get to see almost all my class every time we have a class period. I bring them into a breakout room. I talk to them. They hold up their artwork. I have an iPad so I can share my screen and help them with what they're doing. And I've made some very good connections. And that was something I was very worried about. And I have to tell you, I'm very enthusiastic and I can't wait to get back to my real classroom, but it's not bad. It's not too shabby. We're doing okay.
Great. Thank you, Julia.
I'll stop my share. Sorry, let me stop my share. So
okay.
Yeah, so yay.
Yep. Thank you. And you know, that's an example of a teacher that does not work 8 to 3:15, right? I mean, all the time that our teachers are putting in They do not work regular hours, especially now during distance learning. Their hours have been extended because kids work all hours of the day. And, you know, teachers, we have to tell them, you have to set time aside for yourself, because if they don't, they're going to be answering questions till 12 o'clock at night with some of these students, because students don't sleep, right? They don't have a good clock for when they should go to sleep or when they should wake up. So they're up all hours of the day, and there's all types of different students that sleep at different hours and are awake different hours. So thank you, Julia. We're going to go to Jamie Abdullah, and she is one of the lead teachers for our Biotech Institute. I'll let her talk about that. And the Biotech Institute is more of a small learning community, and where students build community and family. And she could talk about how that's going in the distance learning, because I think they've done some great things as well.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. This is my 18th year at Carlmont. It's my first time speaking before the board, so you'll have to excuse me if I get a little nervous here. I do have a small 2-slide presentation just because I think pictures are really important when we're trying to show what we're doing. So let me screen share here. So I am going to talk about both the Biotechnology Institute and the biotechnology pathways. So we've been doing labs at home. It's been very interesting trying to do biotech with, you know, supplies you would buy at the drugstore or the grocery store, but we've definitely done it. Julian in this first picture was able to clone plants from cuttings and from leaves. He was able to grow Wisconsin fast plants, and he also learned that you can't grow plants in sand. We have another student here doing a cheese lab at home where they made their own cheese. We do hold social events twice a month in the evening just to kind of give students an outlet where they can reconnect with each other. It's not academic, it's fun. We play Pictionary, we play categories. The kids have tried to teach us how to play Among Us, but Susan and I just kind of sit there confused. And then this was a germination activity where students had to germinate a variety of seeds. So I just have one more slide here. And so, you know, we all know the challenges of distance learning. This has not been an easy endeavor, but I think maintaining normalcy, some semblance of normalcy, is not only important for our students, but it's important for the teachers as well. So we've evolved, we've adapted, and we've been able to engage our students. And we're maintaining a lot of the routines that we had in biotech and BTI. So our biotechnology pathway is separate from BTI, the Biotech Institute. It is a 3-year pathway offered to all students. They receive CTE credit for our courses, and Biotech 1-2, Biotech 3-4, and Biomanufacturing are all dual enrolled with Skyline. So students earn up to 9 units of college credit. And so because of that, even though we're in distance learning, we still have to maintain the levels that Skyline's expecting of us. So Skyline did give us a wonderful opportunity over the summer to develop curriculum and really work through labs that could work at home. We had the opportunity to collaborate with biotech teachers from other districts. So in our entire district, I'm the only teacher who teaches Biotech 3-4. So trying to collaborate with someone about how I'm going to change my labs is definitely a challenge. We have over 350 students dual enrolled, and we did our dual enrollment over Zoom with Skyline, which was challenging to say the least. And every biotechnology student is completing 5 take-home labs per semester. So not only do we have the cost associated with that, but we also have the time of assembling kits. So for example, we had to measure out 200 bags with 2 grams of salt, which is impossible for our teachers to do, but we have an amazing community of students and parents. And so we had a supply pickup day where parents came and picked up all our supplies and pre-measured for us. Biotechnology Institute is a 3-year cross-curricular program. We are a small learning community, so we very much had the advantage of knowing our students when we started this year in distance learning. So we really had none of that awkward, like getting to know you-ness. It was just like, hey, Joe, great to see you. Take out your notebook, let's get started. We're seeing, you know, when we're looking at our non-BTI classes compared to our BTI classes, we have much, much better attendance. We have much better student engagement. We're seeing significantly fewer Fs. And so having that small community where students really know their teachers, they really feel comfortable sharing with each other, I think has really been a benefit in this sort of environment. And we're trying to maintain all of the special opportunities that our BTI students have come to expect. So Cytomics, it's a biotech company in South City. They've been amazing. They reached out to us. They're going to do a virtual field trip for us. So their employees have been working on this virtual field trip for like 2 months for us now. The seniors got to go on a trip to the Federal Reserve, just the BTI classes, which was very cool, a virtual tour. We're still having our sophomore symposium. Our juniors are still getting their mentors. And so even though there's all of these challenges and all of this heartache associated with COVID, we're trying to keep that normalcy and that uniqueness that biotech and BTI offers. Thank you.
Great, thank you. That's awesome. We're going to move to Andy Ramrod, who is a math teacher and an avid teacher, so he can speak to those two experiences of distance learning for those groups.
Thanks, Ralph. Yeah, and thank you for having me here tonight. Math has been really a unique year for me as an educator, because taking so much of what I do on a regular year that does not have many digital components to it, and making everything digital, creating YouTube videos for the students to watch, creating lots of online resources. It's made me re-examine the way that I teach a lot, and it's made me pull from a lot of the resources out there that already exist. And I feel like in some areas of my teaching, I'm giving students kind of a lot more thoughtful ways of demonstrating things, because I'm being mindful of their time and how efficiently I can deliver it. And so I've really appreciated that chance to grow myself. And one thing that I've also found that's really nice in the math classroom is that one part that I've always struggled with math education, also especially in accelerated courses, is the idea that math is always done with a time component. Real mathematicians, they don't care about how long it takes them to do anything. They just and in high school math, there's a time component, because teachers are spinning a lot of plates in class. At some point, we got to get this problem over with and move on to the next one. And so the fact that everything is digital, the fact that students can always go back and re-watch me explain that problem, that if they're having a tough day where they weren't great at focusing in class, or if they missed a class, they're able to see everything we did. They're not getting secondhand notes or getting a brief conversation from me the next day. That they can still get the whole experience, even if they missed a day. So that's been a really nice part of this year. The biggest kind of downside I'm trying to overcome in my math classes, and it's difficult, is I think math is best when you get to see it in lots of different ways and hear it in lots of different ways. So the conversations that the students have with each other on a regular day in class, it's been hard to reproduce that. When I introduce a problem and say, hey, give it a shot, talk to your neighbor, I'm always telling my math students to always be looking at their neighbor's paper, which some of them are naturally pretty good at. And just that idea that they should always be testing themselves and seeing other people's ideas. And that's been harder to do this year. So I'm also teaching Avid, and that has been really cool to see some students shine at that they weren't able to do in previous years. I have some I have goals that they all set goals, and then I try to make deals with them. Usually it's like a bag of chips if they hit a mark in a class or score a goal in a soccer game or something like that. I had one student who he challenged me that if he got a 4.0 this year, he could shave my son's head. And I said, sure, this was last year. And he had like a 1.8. I'm like, yeah, I'll take that deal. Go for it. But now he's doing awesome. And he is doing so well. And the reason is he's got learning differences. He's got attention differences. And so when on a regular day, he is just bombarded with so much stuff that when he gets to class, it's really difficult for him to focus and to do well. But now there's kind of less stimulus for him each day. And also the way that teachers are delivering their content, we have to be really clear with what we're doing. And so he's benefiting awesome. And he didn't get a 4.0. He got a B in English, so we got a 3.8. And I was so glad he got a B in English because my wife was not on board with that goal. But it's really cool to see some students shine. Also, for Avid, in like senior year, we do a lot of like getting them ready for college. And the biggest part of college for so many people is just knowing how to plan your day, having the willpower to be self-driven. And they're getting a crash course in that this year. We talk about, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that you need to take care of your physical health and your mental health. And on a regular school day, it's easy to let that go by the wayside because you've got so many other things to think about. Students are recognizing they're forced to think about those things and forced to learn about how they operate best. And so that's been really nice in my Avid class to get to focus on that with them. And I think Julia said that she's seeing how the students are rising to the occasion, how they're so resilient, and I'm definitely seeing that. At the very beginning, that a lot of them were pretty crestfallen that this is the situation we're in, but they really are learning how to be really competent in their classes, and they're starting to, we did like New Year's resolutions, and a lot of them kind of were like, yeah, this whole school thing, I got it. I know how to do it now. So I'm going to start reading more extra books. I'm going to work on my art project. I'm going to go for a jog every morning. And I think they're having a pretty healthy experience in this, I guess, unhealthy time. So they're doing pretty well. Another nice thing that's been helpful for my math students and my Avid students is the ability to get help. We have lots of different tutoring clubs, tutoring organizations at Carlmont that admin and some teachers on campus have been really nice at facilitating. And in a regular year, your day's often too hectic to take advantage of those opportunities. Now there's more space, there's more time. If you are worried that you're not going to be available to go something, well, everyone's available all the time now. So they're always able to take advantage of those opportunities to go to office hours, to go in for tutoring. And I've really seen, that's been always a big push for me for my Avid students. And they've really been taking advantage of that this semester and last semester as well. So that's been really nice to see. So thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you, Andy. And then the last teacher we have for tonight is Melissa Hero, who is a biology teacher by trade, but we have her released to support teachers and integrate technology so she can speak to some of the things she has done with teachers and some of the areas teachers have requested support from her.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Ralph, for letting me share this today. And thank you so much for letting me be in this position this year to help support our teachers. When we started this all, or before distance learning kind of went into effect, all teachers were using Canvas, but most teachers were using it just for like a gradebook feature. They weren't creating assignments for students to then submit online. And so this was a huge change when we went into distance learning, where teachers had to learn a ton of technology super quick and were bombarded with it, regardless of, if they really wanted to learn how to use it or not. So some of the different things that I've been able to do to help teachers is holding office hours, like groups of teachers coming in to learn about Zoom. We did this at the beginning of the year where they got to each take turn being the host and sending people into breakout rooms and bringing them back. We've also been able to kind of walk through the steps of how to combine courses at the beginning of each semester, which is something that is a challenge for many teachers in Canvas. And in addition to holding office hours, I'm also able to meet one-on-one with teachers. So teachers can sign up to make appointments with me throughout the day where they can get help with their specific needs. And so that might include basic like tech support things. I get calls, emails all the time of like, oh, my Zoom isn't working, my video isn't working, what do I do? So I'm able to meet with them and kind of walk them through and fix problems that they might have. How to create questions on Canvas quizzes, the different types, like how to do matching questions or multiple choice, things like that. And then my favorite part is when I get to work with teachers to show them how to take the lessons that they had done in person and kind of convert them into something that works online, because it needs to be a lot of times in a different format, and they need to rethink how their lessons are going. And so each week I hold a professional development session on Wednesdays where I share best practices of lessons for online learning. And so for example, this morning I did a session using an Iron Chef protocol, and that's an Edu protocol is something that you could use over and over again in your class and just kind of change up the content. And this Iron Chef one is a really great lecture alternative. Instead of the teacher just sharing, doing all the work basically and the student just taking notes, but it's the teacher who's putting in that hard work. It flips it around and it gives the students the ability to be more active in their learning, to kind of get that content and then share it with their classmates. And part of this Edu protocol is where students are reading online, in this case, online articles that the teacher is providing as the resource for this activity. And when we have students from all different backgrounds, it can be really tough for students to access that reading material. So in this session, I was also able to share different Google Chrome extensions that allowed the teachers to kind of play around, and then they could share this with their students where they can have it so that students can translate it into their own language, or they could have the article read to them, or they could do highlighting and annotating on any website that they go to. So sharing these tools during these professional developments, I think, is really helpful. And a lot of times the teachers will come back when they're kind of planning it out to implement into their own class with their own content and curriculum. I've also been able to curate resources and post them on our staff website. We have an internal website at Carlmont. And so you don't have to go looking around on all the emails for the information. It's all in one spot. And I make a lot of video tutorials that teachers can come back to when they need it, because a lot of times they're so busy with the day-to-day, taking attendance, making sure they do that by at the right time before students get phone calls home. And so they can, when they need to, go and watch those videos. And then whenever they get stuck or want help, they can come to me and provide, to get that support they need. And I've been so impressed with how much our staff has really embraced technology, learning all these new tools. And I've heard from a lot of teachers, which makes me super happy. It's kind of my silver lining to this whole pandemic, is that they've said that when we come back to in-person learning, that they hope that our students still have the technology devices available to them so that they can continue to do and use some of the technology tools that the teachers are using now, especially Canvas, so that students can submit work, because teachers have really grown to love the speed grader option where they can annotate student work and use rubrics, and it's all built in. So our teachers are doing amazing things, as you've heard from the other teachers earlier today. So it's been really exciting seeing all the teachers taking on educational technology and really embracing it, whether they really wanted to or not. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. And I will say that having Melissa in this full-time release role has been instrumental in the success for our students. We get part-time funding from the district for the tech position, and I cobble together funding from other sources to make sure she's a full release, because she's available at the whim of the teachers, basically. I mean, they email her, she's responsive immediately. Nobody has to wait for her to finish her class or deal with she's dealing with the students. She's responsive to the teachers, and that's been her sole role. And then she's been phenomenal at it. When there's a question that comes up, she does the research. She's always keeping up to date on all the most recent technologies and techniques. And so her role and the way that she's taken it on is really why our teachers have been so successful at Carlmont, because she does a phenomenal job at what she does, and the teachers have really appreciated her ability to create content for them and deliver it in a way that they can use and turn around and benefit the students with. So thank you very much. Are the students here? Matthew, are you here? Or Emily, did you make it? I don't think so. All right, well, I guess we can open it up to questions. Thank all the teachers for being here. I know you took time out of your busy schedule. I really appreciate everything you do, and I appreciate you coming here and sharing this with everybody. And I'll turn it back over to Crystal to see where we go from here.
Looks like we have some questions. So President Sarver, feel free to.
Okay, I see Carrie Dubois, you had your hand up first, so why don't you go ahead?
This presentation was exactly my cup of tea. Thank you so much. And this is what I like to see at board meetings. Pre-COVID, you know how sometimes board members walk in and out of classrooms? I don't learn that much doing that sort of thing. I learn so much more by hearing directly from teachers about what they're most excited about. And that's what this presentation was all about. I want to share something, and then I do have a question for our superintendent as well. What I want to share, it's probably more appropriate for Genevieve and Julia. When some of our elementary schools were opening in the county, a couple of them opened, and I heard that, like in one district, they reassigned the elective teachers to go back in the classroom. In another district, I talked to a parent, and she said, well, they just can't do everything, so they have to drop electives. And I was very opinionated about that. At one point, in sort of a public forum with other elected officials, it's like music is as important as math. You can't take it away, especially in these COVID days. And then when I was at the California School Boards Association, I apologize to my colleagues who have heard this story before, but I have to say it again because you guys are here. When I was at the California School Boards Association conference, which was all online this year, and I went to one of the workshops. It was put on by San Gabriel Unified. And when they had to close their schools down, they decided to double down on the visual and performing arts. That's where they put their focus. I don't think anybody else in the state did that. And what they believe is it kept kids engaged, it helped with their attendance, it helped with mental health. And what they did, kids that weren't getting art and music were getting art and music. And in their presentation, they described the passing out of instruments and everything else. And in the presentation, they also did a clip of an English language learner doing a drama reading that was so emotional and so profound. So anyway, I was reminded about all of this during your presentation. So thank you. And thank you for, the math, the biotech, everything that you guys are doing. AVID. We know that when kids are part of small groups, they're going to do better, whether it's pre-COVID or in this world where schools are shut down, kids being part of something special, part of a small group. And that leads me to my question. The beginning of the presentation, the COVID update, that we believe that our cohorts have fallen apart because the COVID rates are up. It's my belief, and I could be wrong, that our cohorts, it doesn't look very fun to me to have our most at-risk kids just sitting in front of a computer. And I've been talking lately to people who work with some of our most at-risk kids, and they struggle so much. They need much, much more to be successful in school. And I know this also from my advocacy with foster youth. I've met so many foster youth, and as they traveled, from district to district, and sometimes districts in parts of the state didn't know what to do with these really high-risk foster youth, and so they were put in independent study classes, or they were put in front of a computer, and they struggled, and I've heard directly from them. So could it be that that is why the cohort attendance is down? Because it's just not fun to be in front of a computer. And also a lot of those kids don't have the benefit of electives. So that is the question I have.
I think that it's several reasons, right? And I think that the reasons probably differ for all of our students and what they need during COVID, right? Because there's no escaping COVID, right? So if you need to leave your home for a quiet place to work or a change in scenery or to interact with others, you come to your school site and you're wearing a mask and there's plexiglass and you can't get in close distance and you can only walk one way down the hallway, and it's taxing because it's everywhere. And so there's just no break. And so it's so important that we're able to get them the connections that we can offer them in a safe environment. And the sites are working on how to create more, basically making it more attractive, to come and what offerings that we have. With MA's recent starting of that jazz band, that teacher went over and above to create this safe environment. And I think that we are, even though we seem to be at the tail end of this, we can see the horizon out there, that we're still very eager to make those type of changes so that we can increase what we can do for students at the sites to make it more attractive. I think that, we haven't always had the best attendance in our cohorts, right? We see them kind of toggle up and down, but definitely after the break, as we do the outreach and seeing the case numbers so high, especially in some of our areas that we need to have, more services for, is very alarming.
Okay, Trustee Thompson, Chris.
Well, I agree with Carrie. That was wonderful in every way. So to Genevieve and Julia and Jamie and Andy and Melissa, I think we all want to say thanks for your creativity, for the huge challenge you're taking on, and for the amazing work you're doing in the classroom. And tonight, say thanks for your presentations. It was uplifting, I guess, is the way I'm thinking about it. Most of our board time, I think, is addressing the questions of what's not happening, or what's not happening in a way that we want it to. And it's nice occasionally, at least, to be seeing what's happening and what's happening in such a wonderful way. I have to tell you that I'm grateful to Genevieve, who's given the board the chance to sit in on performances or attend performances, and online performances as such are easier to get to than the ones face-to-face. And tonight, it was great to sit in the VAC and just see that and the visual appeal of that and think about the learning potential there. It was also uplifting, I think, to think about the ways you're re-examining your own teaching. So the one question I wanted to ask of you all really is echoed in something Melissa said, which is what happens when we come back. And what I want to know is, what do we carry from this experience that we actually want to carry forward into the new world we return to when we're able to do that? I heard comments about shared curriculum, thought about greater opportunities for teacher collaboration, conceivably. And you're also looking at new ways of using online resources. Maybe now, if there are one or two comments that teachers would share with us. Also, I think this will be a continuing question for us. And the specific thing that'll come to the board is, what can the board do? And from a district perspective, what do we need to do to facilitate those changes or help you carry forward things that are working well for you now?
Julia, you look very eager to respond.
Yeah, I'm like, was it Horseshack from Welcome Back, Kotter? Okay, so two things come to mind when what the takeaway is, a little more conceptual as opposed. One thing is appreciation. I don't think our kids are going to be the same next year. I think they're going to come back to school different and changed and more appreciative of everything, just like many of us are going to be. That's one thing I think that we are all going to come back with. The second thing is, I have noticed that my kids have to take a lot more responsibility for their interactions with me than they did before. They really have to be a lot more proactive. They have to be a little more independent. And I think those are good things. I think that we tend to spoon feed our students to the point where sometimes we can make them less able to do things on their own. And I think that when they come back to school, they're going to be a lot more assertive and also more engaged in their own education. What you can do as a school board to support that is technology, technology, technology. We need to make sure that all those kids have access to that, to the same type of technology, because we do now. I mean, the kids all have access to technology, and I think that's huge. That's the most practical thing the board can do to keep this going, is to really support our students so that there's equity in their ability to access technology. Because, you know, you'll get a kid from Silicon Valley who has everything, and then you'll get a kid who, like at the beginning of the year, you know, not only did some of the teachers not know a lot about technology, a lot of the students didn't. There were students who really struggled with that. And so there's a huge gap, a learning gap between and, you know, due to the inaccessibility of modern technology to some of our students. And so bridging that gap, I think, is hugely important to our district. But I think that we're all going to come back and just be so happy to be there with each other. And they're going to be more resilient, and they're going to be more independent. But that's how you can support us, I think.
Awesome. Thank you. Genevieve.
I apologize for the camera being off. I have a toddler in my lap who's trying very hard to fall asleep. I think the big takeaway for me, and I've talked about this with my students a lot, is that we have slowed everything down. Like as a school, we just have to. I don't see my kids 5 days a week. I see them twice a week, and then some, you know, half of them come to the hangout on Friday afternoon that we host, you know. So we've had to really slow down and kind of do fewer activities, but be way more mindful about how we do them. And I've had lots of conversations about the kids about that this feels like this might be more, maybe we don't want to move this slowly when we get back to school, but this pace where we can actually like digest the curriculum and really talk about the music and really get into it deeply, and everybody like analyze what they're doing and not just sort of work to the test and work to the concert is really amazing. And the other thing that I don't know if there's any way to preserve this, but having one day a week where I feel like one of the best things that this school district did when we started this year was to give teachers Wednesdays to support students and actually create curriculum. It has been never in my career that I feel like I've had actual time to like create curriculum, and this year having the time, like having that Wednesday that like I'm gonna sit down and prep has been amazing. And so I hope we can it's not the 3-year-old. I hope we can build more teacher planning and curriculum time in the future.
Thank you, Genevieve. I appreciated your guest star as much as Ralph's cat's contributions earlier. Let's hear from Melissa, and then we'll get to Shanice's question.
I just want to echo what Julia had talked about of having technology available to the students when we return back to in-person learning. I think it's going to be really helpful for students not to just have it in the classroom. In the past, before the pandemic, there was always a fight between teachers sometimes of who got to check out the Chromebook carts beforehand. And I think that now that teachers really are using the technology and are finding technology tools that they enjoy in the classroom, I think it's important that we have technology provided for our students as well in the classroom, but as at home as well. We don't want them to go home and have homework assignments that they can't complete because they don't have a specific device at home. So looking forward into the future, I think it's really important to ensure that all of our students still have access to technology in the classroom and at home.
Great. Thank you. Okay, Shanice.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I thought it was quite interesting. And some of the comments about what did you learn from this process. I wanted to underscore having a person separate that is more part of the teacher community that can help with technology. Like, I think that that was a vast investment. I think we're going to have to continue to think about how to support teachers to become tech savvy in the classroom, maybe not tech savvy in everything, but tech savvy in the classroom. And that the equal access to technology was definitely jarring coming into the pandemic, that I think we need to think about technology as just as important as a book for a student. So I appreciate that underscore, because I actually think the world is changing and technology is so important. Even for my job, I get all kinds of technology and apps and things of that sort. So I wanted to underscore that. But the one thing I wanted to, there's two questions I have. One is around engagement, and maybe one of the teachers can let me know. One is, I know that some teachers have talked about engagement, the screens off, the attendance low, or the screen off, and you think they're there, all those kinds of things. Did you see that in any of the work that you were doing technology? I mean, I think one of the blessings of being a part of a public school, we don't discriminate. Everybody's in your classroom, a child with second language, learning second language, a person who may have a disability, a learning disability, to a person who is gifted. Like, you could have anything. So technology, music and art and drama and all that doesn't discriminate, and either does the public school. And so I'm wondering, with that vast difference in your classroom, did you see a change in attendance and engagement because you had to be more creative, as you talked about, teaching in the pandemic? Julia?
I'm really going to be the annoying one, but I'm used to that. I believe that the kids who were struggling beforehand are still exhibiting the same struggle. Mm-hmm. Kids who I had a problem engaging in the classroom are still the problem children who are having a problem engaging. I haven't seen huge uptick. It's about the same, maybe even a little less, but they really are still having problems, because the problems are not necessarily school. And so they don't do school that easily, whether it's given to them online or whether it's given to them in a brick and mortar classroom. The students who are having issues being good students, or studenting, as I call it as a verb, are continuing to have those. And it has been frustrating to, we have so many things that Carlmont put into place. The counselors are being amazing. And I'm able to communicate with the students, but the ones with bad attendance still have bad attendance. The ones who weren't engaged in the classroom are not. I haven't seen like a huge change. It's very static, and so it's frustrating. I think that's something that has still not been addressed, because those are sometimes societal issues that are bleeding into our class, and they always have been. There's nothing new under the sun. And so the good news on this is that I think distance learning and this whole thing that we're going through has really made us pay attention. This needs to be fixed. And, there's no way we can just, oh, I saw 160 kids a day. What was that kid's name who came in late and then left? And it's very clear what the problems are. The solutions are not as clear. But I think it's become very focused on the kids who don't have technology, the kids who are struggling in school. All those things are just super focused. That's what I would say on that.
I'm raising my hand for Andy. There's been a little technology challenge here. When he was moved over from attendees to panelists, he lost his hand. So yeah, my cat thinks I'm a jungle gym too. It just bounces on and off, and it thinks it rules the house. So I'm going to raise my hand and let Andy speak because he had his hand up earlier.
Thank you. I promise I do this for a living, and my hand is gone. I'd like to answer both for Trustee Stevenson and also the previous question. So for the the students with the cameras off, I certainly saw that, but those all led to individual conversations. And it's the same sort of conversations you have in a traditional year where you recognize maybe a student hasn't turned in some assignments, some students not participating. That could be for 1,000 reasons. And those, you figure out those best with individual conversations. And the idea in a regular year, I gotta get the whole class to do something and then yank that kid outside and have nobody else notice that I just yanked that kid outside. And this year, we can quietly make a little breakout room and I can talk to that student. And I've found that that's been a somewhat of a silver lining for our Zoom setup. And then I certainly echo everything Ms. Shulman said about the discrepancies that we have in the education system for our students. Nothing's changed. So those problems are still going to be there. And then for the previous question about what am I going to take to next year? I think one of the things that I've noticed, and then I believe also Ms. Tepp was saying earlier about the things that we do, we're going to do that we've done less of them, but we've done them really well, and that we've put a lot of thought and creativity into it. And the idea of collaboration, all that comes with having the time to do it. For our students, I've always felt like when I teach Algebra 1 versus I teach AP Calculus, at a developmental level, I have to go faster with my Algebra 1 students than I do with my AP Calculus students, because the level of content that we're expected to teach to do well on those standardized tests, I don't feel it's appropriate for their age. And so what students have done, or what teachers have done this year, they've decided, yeah, we're not going to teach those things because we're crossing our fingers that the tests will be different or whatever standardized thing we're going to see in the future. And we're doing less, and we're doing it more thoughtfully, and we're giving them the time to do it really well. And I hope that's something we can take into the future, that there might be outside expectations for us to hit certain content standards, but we as educators can choose, these are the things we know are really important, and we're going to make sure we take the time to do them well. So I hope that's something that we can take from this experience. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that was the last comment I'm going to make versus a question, is that as a person who has children with different learning needs, there's always great ways of teaching that's not brick and mortar, or it's not always about quantity versus quality, so that you walk away with good critical skills. And we know we need those skills. Those are the kids who actually do well after college, that they are critical. They just don't study for the test or teach to the test. So I wanted to note that. I don't know how that looks. I'm not an educator, I'm a parent. And so that was one of the things I gleaned away from this. So thank you very much for your honesty around the attendance piece of it. And that has me to continue to think how we can better support those students and continue to support the technology piece of it. So thank you.
Genevieve, you've had your hand up. You have 2 cents.
Yeah, and I'll try to be brief, but I just want to make sure that I sort of speak to this, that although we've done, like, I have done some really rad stuff with my kids. I put up a full concert in December. I'm super excited about that, but that's not to say that I don't have kids every day that are really, really struggling. And I have kids because my kids, I ask them to get, like, okay, open up your laptops and sing. So I have kids that are in the living room with 3 siblings where it's really hard for them to work and that sort of thing. That has been a huge challenge. Or kids that live in apartment buildings where they've got really thin walls and making noise and singing and having siblings at home, or they're at home managing their little siblings' education while their parents are at work as essential workers. So I have all those kids, and I'm pushing them to, okay, now sing. So I definitely am seeing that a lot of kids are really having challenges, but I've been able to normalize like sort of the sort of crazy phonetic, I have a toddler at home who's running around all the time. So it's, it's okay for Mrs. Tepp to sort of have some sort of crazy stuff going on at her house. So I feel like my kids are maybe a little bit more comfortable. And the other thing that I have seen, and I think I'm in a more unique place to see this, and maybe like Jamie sees this as well, but I've got kids that I've had for 3 or 4 years that I know are highly social kids who do really well in class, because the in-class participation discussion part of class is where they really, really shine. And I've got a handful of kids that this has been extremely difficult for those kids who've sort of fallen off, who've stopped participating, stopped raising their hand. And I know the kids, so I'm able to get in contact with them and do a one-on-one meeting and say like, hey, what's going on? This isn't you, and kind of get to the bottom of it. But it is really challenging for some kids. We're getting through it, as you can hear in the background. But it is a huge challenge socially and emotionally for a lot of kids. So that social emotional learning that some of us are doing is just paramount to just about everything else, I think.
Great, thank you. Jamie.
Sorry, I did it now. Yeah, I mean, my engagement with my students is a little odd because, some of them have their screens off, and we had that conversation early on with, I want you to be comfortable. So if you need to have your screens off because there's 5 people in your room, then let's have that conversation. But my labs have to be done in the kitchen, and most kids' computers are in the room. So I kind of see my students like running back and forth, getting lab supplies and stopping and asking me questions. And so because we are doing labs, there's a lot of engagement, and then when we have to talk about the outcome of the lab, and people, definitely disengage. But the rules online are the same as the rules in class. You have to have your flow charts in, you do the lab, we have a discussion, you do your conclusion. And so I've gotten some really great ideas about remodeling my kitchen when kids move their laptop in the kitchen. And some kids on the, on computers that don't move, I just get Miss Abdul, is it supposed to be blue? All right. And they go off. So it's different and it's unique, but it's that chaos that comes with learning. So.
Great, thank you. Rich, did you have some comments you wanted to throw in?
Well, I appreciate the presentation. I think what Chris commented about, it's nice to sometimes hear about things that are going well. We heard some things going well, and you also added some of the challenges. That's been good to hear. I really feel like my colleagues have already hit all the things I would have said.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so I'll take a shot at a few things. And first of all, my hat's off to Superintendent Leach for suggesting that this be really kind of the direction we take the time to look at the COVID update this week, and for how strongly Trustee Dubois really supported and jumped on board to really make sure that this is the direction we went. It is fabulous to hear from this group of teachers. It's clear that you are all absolute superstars, but it is also clear that you are representative of the type of commitment and brilliance that's being brought into the classroom by our faculty across the entire district. Certainly I had the chance to be working with Melissa, from 10 months ago, when we were looking at going into distance learning. It was so clear what a critical role she and other technology leaders across the district were going to need to play to really open up the doors and give everybody the opportunity to step forward into a creative new way of teaching. And the focus was always on the promise of really unleashing the educational technology to do it in a new way, to not just mimic what we were losing, but to begin exploring how much we could advance from there and how much more in the way of engagement and student achievement could really come out of that. And I'm really excited to hear everybody talking about how important it is that we take the positive lessons that we've learned through this grand experiment and make sure that we don't go back to normal, but that we move forward to a new normal where we're able to really embrace the great things we've been missing about brick and mortar, social, student support, life in the classroom, but really envelop it in a new technological, more student-centered, more individualized and personalized form of education that can move our kids forward in new ways that we haven't before. I really appreciate the plea to keep the focus on technology. We've done great things in partnership with the county in addressing the accessibility desert of our communities in East Palo Alto, in Bellhaven, in North Fair Oaks, and other key parts of our district. That's an important start. It's not a job that's been finished by any means, but we have focused more on these kinds of things and made big progress. The other kinds of things that you're raising, that we're seeing more personalized ways in which we need to engage and help the students with the things that are outside of school so that the things inside school resonate and work better. We can't lose that perspective when things become easier again in some of the old traditional ways. I hope that the focus on technology also translates into a little bit less weight on our students' back in future years. We've really seen an awful lot of what they can get through the technology that doesn't require lugging around 40 pounds of paper day in and day out. Sure, there's going to be a little bit more opportunity to make use of paper books again, but let's not just say, hey, let's go all the way back there, because we're getting so much more out of it. I've had a really rare and exciting opportunity this school year, and it's really kind of hitting its stride right now with the Music Mentor program that I run with the Carlmont instrumental music students. And this year it's happening over Zoom. And I've had the opportunity to watch them demonstrate the great teachers of the future they're becoming because of the experiences they're having in the classroom. So we set up a giant Zoom session every afternoon, and we no longer have to worry about transporting Carlmont students to elementary schools, about engaging parent volunteers to do the driving, about becoming responsible for the physical whereabouts of students on a different campus, finding the rooms to work in, not disturbing the elementary classrooms, all these other things that have been going on. We go into Zoom rooms. Each instrument and individual level of experience gets its own breakout room. Each mentor now has their own breakout room, and it's one-on-one or one on a very small group instruction. And these students that have come out of the Carlmont Instrumental Music Program, they are absolute masters of the internet tools for learning and teaching music. They're using smart music. They're out there digging up PDFs of all of the music that the kids are using. They're bringing in online metronomes. They're not only able to work on tuning and note recognition and timing and all the normal basic things that are going on, but they're hitting on all levels of music theory in new ways that are much more engaging. And I'm getting feedback from the parents of these elementary kids who are talking about how great the experience is. They can't believe what these high school kids are bringing and how important that 45 minutes of the week is to their students, that those kids are looking forward to it all week long, and their musical skill is growing in leaps and bounds. And it's the happiest part of their week because they're engaged in their passion with these mentors who are engaged in their passion. And all of the classes that we talked about here, you're teaching to the students' passion. You're unleashing their passion. We've got that engagement piece that we're so concerned about nailed to the wall. And that's what we need to be learning and bringing forward out of this year is that the way that we have focused that student passion, that student engagement in this great new world of technology has got to translate into smarter education in the future. And the things that you're learning, the things that you're bringing forward have to be the backbone of what we do. I hope we look very strongly at how do we make sure there is more prep time, collaboration time for our teachers in future years, and how are we refining the kind of the offline time where the students are on their own while the teachers are focusing on curriculum development and the other work that's going on, so that we can have more prep time without reducing the students' quality learning time in future years. And then there's one more thing. I hope we'll come back to it in the WASC. I think that, Genevieve was talking, and I think the other teachers as well, about going slower, going into more depth, that we're moving away from the mile wide and inch deep curriculum into the depth and the value and the quality. And I think that reflects on some of Carlmont's thoughts about a transition to a block schedule. That the WASP talks about having tried one of the block schedule models for a semester and an interrupted beginning of a trial of the second one. But this year has been a trial of a completely different kind of block schedule that's a more comprehensive block schedule rather than the modified with 1 day a week on block and several days on traditional 6 or 7 periods. And I'll ask you to think about, are we seeing a better student engagement environment in this more deeply implemented block approach that might also influence your thinking about future years? And Ralph, that gives you, at least into the next presentation to think about an answer to that part of it. Thank you so much. It was so exciting to hear and see the passion that you are bringing to your profession and the way it is unleashing so much for the students. And it's a lot more than making lemonade out of the greatest batch of lemons we've all seen. It's about building the future out of this opportunity. So thank you very much. And I think, unless there's anything else, we could move on to item 13.2.
I just want to say thank you to the Carlmont teachers once again. You are free to log out and do what you need to do. You're no obligation to stay, and your presence and your presentation and your answering questions was very much appreciated. So thank you very much.
I want to thank the school board for letting us have this forum to let us show off some of the things that we really are so excited about and have this chance to talk about pedagogy and just about teaching and learning. And it was thank you. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to speak. Good night.
Thank you.
We'll talk at every meeting if you want us.
Yeah. We got no problems talking. Bye.
I'm going to give some of the other schools a chance too. All right, Trustee Superintendent Leach, if you'd like to go on to 13.2.
Yes, 13.2, as you all are aware that we are currently in a superintendent search. And so I wanted to give the board an opportunity to discuss as necessary. The attachments in the board agenda do include the input session schedule, which started yesterday. It ran a full day. I think it started like at 8:20 in the morning and went through the afternoon. Yesterday was a mixture of both internal and external different groups that leadership and associates worked with in addition to the survey. Tomorrow is the second day, I think there's like maybe a session in the morning, and then most of the sessions are in the afternoon. And so that is attached for your viewing, as well as an updated timeline. And then a reminder of just how the search process is handled.
Okay. So I think that most of this is fairly familiar to the board, and I think it's good to have the documents available for the interested public to really have a good look at. I would say for me, I was pleased to hear also in kind of conversation with you, Crystal, about some of the kind of readjustment of the individual input sessions that went on as the various groups that were invited kind of talked through how to really optimize the availability of the diverse voices in the district and the community, and really add sessions where it was appropriate to make everybody most comfortable in making sure that the unique voices would be heard in their most effective comfort level. I appreciate that a lot of, or at least a number of additional sessions were added to really kind of strengthen the voice and strengthen the input. I think that really is an important way that the process evolves. And I'll be very excited to hear what kind of numbers we end up getting in terms of community input to really have that strong voice. All right, Shanice, I see your hand up.
Crystal, do you, given what Alan has just, Trustee Sarver has said, sorry. How was the attendance? Because I know that city council members for some of our 9 communities, I know that we tried to reach out to some of the youth programs that really partner with us at our school district level, and so did we have good attendance? You know, part of my questioning is like, are the voices that don't typically come to the table, are they at the table? So just making sure I'm touching point with you guys.
So I attended one of the sessions because I part of one of the groups. All of my fellow colleagues were there. However, there's only 2 of us right now. So I'm actually not privy to the other information. It's between leadership and associates and then also the board. So I'm sure that our subcommittee of President Sarver and Carrie could get that information from leadership and they could share that with you. Within my session though, and dialogue with leadership, David was able to share that they had a good turnout on the survey, and as like over the weekend, they had about 2,000 hits, which was really good because it just opened on Friday, and I believe it remains open for a week, if not a little bit longer. So that's definitely good news, and I know that in addition, as some of the trustees have asked for additional inquiries, that leadership and associates is also reaching out to those community organizations.
Thank you.
Muted myself. There we go. Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay.
Trustee Sarver, it does look like we have a public comment.
Okay, yes, great. All right, and that looks like Jay. So if we can unmute Jay, or did that hand go down because question is withdrawn or just because you're ready to go? It's still muted.
He's self-muted.
Are you talking to me?
We have in the public attendees, there's a person who's only identified as Jay, whose hand was up, but the hand has gone down. And if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, you may.
Looks like that request went away.
Okay. All right. All right. If there are no other questions, I think we'll definitely try to get some feedback from the consultants on attendance and how satisfactory that is all going. All right. I see that we've been at this almost 2 hours as we're ready to turn the corner into our action items. So I think this would probably be a good time to give everybody a break and be ready to hit those action items with full attention. It's 10 to 8, so let's be back at 8 sharp, ready to go and hit those action items.
All right, thank you.
And I see people are beginning to come back. We won't get going yet until we get a couple more. All right. Since we have action items and we'll all be voting on these, I want to wait until we do have all 5 of our board members present, and then we'll go.
Alan, I think 14.1 you want to do without Shawnice and me anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Rick, I think if you're ready, we can begin recording again. Great.
Okay.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. And we're ready to move on to our action items with 14.1, approval of minutes.
Usually these are on consent, so my apologies. 14.1 is the minutes from the December 9th meeting. We pulled those off of the consent agenda, moved them to an action item because our new 2 trustees would have had to abstain from that vote. So that is why you see them as an action item.
Great.
President Sarver, I'd be happy to move approval of the minutes from December 9th.
And I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Shawnice, we're abstaining. There we go.
So 3 in favor, 2 abstentions, no opposed. They are passed. Yeah. All right. And that brings us on to the Carlmont Wasp report. And I'm glad we were able to give Ralph a little rest. I'll turn it over to Bonnie for introduction, and then we can go.
Okay, well, I can go ahead and start. I'm actually not going to be speaking here. We have Ms. Gay Buckland Murray and Molly McNinch, who have put this report together and doing phenomenal work up until this time, and will continue to take us through. And they're going to do the presentation for the report here. So I'm going to turn it over to my wonderful WASP team.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's nice to have everyone here. Happy to be talking about our WASP report right now. I'm just going to back things up a little bit because I know we have 2 new board members, so I'm just going to address the whole WASP process really briefly. First, in case it's unfamiliar to them, our schools are accredited every 6 years. Our last visit at Carlmont was in 2018. In the midst of every school visit is done on a 6-year cycle. So we're at the midpoint from that accreditation cycle. And at that midpoint, we have to present the accreditation board with a mid-cycle report, which is really all about us doing a little self-examination on what we've accomplished and what we still want to get done before they come back again and visit us in 2024. So it's a little bit of a look back and then a moment of reflection on where we sit right now, and then gazing forward into what we hope to accomplish in the next 3 years. So let me just go to the next slide really quickly. And let me kind of tell you about how our WASC mid-cycle report is designed. We do not come up with the design. It's very prescriptive by the accreditation board of what they want to hear from us at this midpoint in 3 years. And so the first thing that you see in the report is a description of the school and the district itself. They want to know population numbers, who teaches at our school, who makes up our staff, et cetera. what our student body is comprised of. Then chapter 2, they really want us to think about what's different in 2021 than when they came and visited us in 2018. What's changed? What are the significant developments in that time, and what have the impacts of those developments been? Chapter 3 is us explaining to the accreditation board how we went about compiling the report and how we prepared for the visit. The report is only one part of the process. In 2 weeks, we're going to have a visiting committee come visit Carlmont. Usually in a non-pandemic year, they come to our campus and walk around and get their own perspective on who we are and what we do. This will be a virtual visit. It's all going to be handled via Zoom. With a whole lot of links and a lot of patience. So chapter 3 is us really writing about what we did in order to make sure that all voices were heard and examined in generating this information. Chapter 4 has us talk about what we said we wanted to accomplish back in 2018. What did we say was important, and what steps did we take towards improving on those goals? We talked about what worked, what didn't work, and then any measurable impact. Chapter 5, for me personally, is always the most interesting because it's all about looking forward, taking into account the things that we've said we want to do and talking about, well, okay, this is what we want to do, what's going to happen moving forward, which is a very interesting thing to have to contemplate again mid-pandemic, because that has certainly impacted everything that we've been doing. So that's kind of what you have. That's how the report came to be. And then how we actually did this, I want to turn the microphone or the screen over to Molly, who I want to introduce Molly McNinch to you first, because some of you may have heard her speak before the board, but Molly stepped up into this role in August, and usually a WASC mid-cycle report is started the year prior. But because we had the transition in the role that I now fill, we needed to find someone quick, and Molly stepped up into that role in just the hugest way possible and really captivated the staff, made this activity and this work fun, and the staff really took it on wholeheartedly. And so Molly, thank you so much. And school board, there she is, Miss Molly McNinch, fantastic water polo coach, calculus teacher extraordinaire, wonderful person to work with. So Molly, let's go through the next couple slides.
Hi, thank you for that introduction. So I'm going to share my screen, and I think it takes my video away, but that is okay. So we are going to talk about kind of how we did our mid-cycle report. And so what we were doing with the mid-cycle report was we really wanted to kind of analyze what data we had gathered from 2018 to 2020, and we really wanted to determine any outstanding trends of the data and explore any correlation to our critical areas of need, which we call our CANs. I think they are also CLSN, the CLISNs. So that was really our goal. Why we wanted to do this was because this is, as our mid-cycle report, we wanted to kind of see what were we doing well based off of the data, and we wanted to determine, were there other data points that we could perhaps look at that would be more interesting or perhaps give us more insight into how we're doing in terms of our action plan of our CANs. So how we did this was staff reviewed and gave feedback on the data we provided. We identified trends, we determined actions that were done to support the CANs. We reflected on how those actions impacted the trend and trends. We explored if there were different data points that we could look at that would be better measures for certain CANs. And we also considered what else we can do moving forward that would positively impact our CANs and our Carlmont community. So two of the big things that we found, or two data points that I want to really highlight that we found, were the percent of Carlmont graduates who have fulfilled A through G requirements. This has a pretty nice growth, as you guys can see, from 2019 to 2020. So NSLP, that is National School Lunch Program. And so these are students who are on the free and reduced lunch. So as you can see, the percent of Carlmont graduates who fulfilled A through G requirements did actually have a pretty significant growth over that time period. One of the things that was also notable is the Carlmont graduates who were taking AP classes and IB classes as well. Also, this was a huge increase, 22.2%, with our socioeconomically disadvantaged students as well. So these are two really significant data points that we found, and that our actions from our cans really were highlighted in, or we were able to kind of see actions that we had done and also look at actions we could do moving forward to help our students for the future. And so I know that I also have highlighted the all students as well, just because I think it's a 6% growth, but that's still a good growth. It's the difference between a B and a B plus, I think. So that's always good. And then I know moving forward, I think Gay, I will bring it back to you. I think I have to do a few things to mute myself again.
Okay.
So.
And one of the things in looking at those trends that Molly highlighted on those two slides is that kind of encapsulates the type of work that we did. We saw those types of trends and said, okay, what did we do at Carlmont differently since 2018 to 21 that possibly could explain that growth in those two areas for that particular population? We ended up realizing that, well, in that time, we've removed some barriers to AP classes. We've paid for AP tests for that group of students. As some of you may know, Carlmont has now offered the SAT free to all students, so that those are types of measures where we're removing any type of obstacle for that group of students. And perhaps that's what we're seeing in that measure. We're not sure. There's other things that people have been doing. Is it just cognizance of that group that has generated the change? We're not necessarily sure, but we have to think about what we've been doing so that we can identify other actions as we move forward. So Molly, when you bring up the slideshow again, if you could go to slide 3 first, I want to do that one before we go on to our next steps. She's got it, gave me the thumbs up. Okay, if we could go to slide 3, that would be terrific. And then we'll jump back to 7. So we talked about the data before really identifying what our goals were. And those of you on the school board, these all should be really familiar to you from September, our report of the site plan, because our site plan goals and our WASP goals are the same. The only thing that's been different as we went through this process, we realized that the work that we're going to be doing for the next 3 years really is all about that number 4. We need to continue to implement and employ effective distance learning, as you just heard from our teachers earlier tonight. But then we also really need to spend the next couple years figuring out how to transition out of this, because the impact on our students may be longer term than just, okay, everything's fine and normal, let's go back to business as usual. We all heard from them that there's things we want to take that we learned that were positive from this experience and put that in when things become normal again as well. So that transition goal is going to be a big one for the next 3 years. So now what are our next steps? Let's talk about those next 3 years. That's slide 7, if we could go to there. Here's some things that we've actually kind of started on already moving forward. So as many of you on the board are aware, we're really working right now at all the high schools in the district and at Carlmont in particular on issues around equity and diversity. Our school, now that we've kind of wrapped up our WASP work for now, we want to move forward on really looking at who we are as a school and how to start those conversations about equity and diversity among ourselves as a staff and with our students. That's something that's going to be happening for student health and for student success. We already talked about the SAT for all students, for all juniors is going to be offered. It says there, SAT offered to Carlmont High School students. It'll be offered to all juniors. We already offered it to all seniors in October of this past year. Today, as a matter of fact, we created a survey on site to kind of look at where students are in overall health and well-being. We have, in fact, I just got the email from the head of our site and governance council. Over half of our students, we had about 1,500 students fill out that survey today. So that'll generate some pretty rich data from which we can use in looking at WASP goal number 3. Students also today took California Healthy Kids Survey. All the sites did that, and we'll have that data as well. So that's 2 big groups to help us look at student wellness going forward. The bell schedule. I think Trustee Sarver cited this earlier tonight. Carlmont's got some thinking to do. It's something that we've said we want to change. better serve our students. And now we have another year's worth of data of trying out this different type of block schedule that will help inform the block schedules that we tried before the pandemic to come up with something when, again, things get normalized. Something new that Carlmont will be taking on next year, some of their schools in the district have started this. We're going to be doing the Algebra Initiative, Algebra for All for 9th graders. So that's really going to be pushing us to start thinking about how to serve all students in that math level. And of course, we're continuing to think about athletic pods, academic and enrichment cohorts on campus now. Will those continue this school year into next year as we transition into different types of schooling models? And then we highlighted there too some recovery plans. We're also talking already about summer school opportunities. What are we going to be using to think about credit deficiencies for our students that have been caused by the pandemic? Are there going to be other opportunities that we can generate for students to find credit? And then other ways of bringing students back onto campus. We've talked extensively about Zoomers and roomers. We've talked about bringing students in on an A day, B day, shifting groups. What are our different options moving forward to get students back on campus? So those are some of our goals, things we're going to be working on as we move forward up at Carlmont High School. So I think we have one more slide right there, which is going to be the usual slide where we're going to thank you for listening to us talk about our mid-cycle report. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about the mid-cycle report, questions you have, reflections, comments. It would be interesting to hear from you.
Alan, you're on.
Yeah, you're on mute, Alan.
Thank you. Yeah, Chris has raised his hand. So let's have Chris go ahead.
And I can be fast. Look, it's a great report. I'd be pleased to move for approval. I did want to share two comments rather than questions about the report. The first is you've got an excellent section on the demographics, which I think are really important for us to understand, especially in our district. Some of those demographics have changed in substantial ways in the report. I'm going to highlight one, but the comment for you all is, I hope you take into account demographic changes that would have an impact on the performance measures. You highlighted the important activity you have at assessing what are you doing that's improving things, which seems to me is a fundamental question. But in asking that, it seems important to ask what's changing in the demographics of our student population that affects the performance one way or the other. The stunning change that I noticed was you've had a 20% growth in the number of parents who have advanced degrees, which is I don't know how that happens really, but I would imagine that might be a major predictor of change. The other hope I'd have for the WASP report is that you're able to begin to start to incorporate comments we heard today from teachers about how teaching may change after we get out of COVID. That's it. Thank you for the report.
Rich, I see your hand up.
Yep, thanks. So I'll echo what Chris said about, I appreciate the data. Maybe this is just a quick yes or no question. Are the WASPs by custom always available on all school websites, and do all schools do it? Because I thought the data and detail is great, and I haven't gone to every school website and looked for this. Do you know if it's on every school? Is it on your website, and is it on do you know if it's on others?
It should be on most of the school websites. Our current report has not yet been published. It will go up in the next couple days, but most of the other sites should have them as well. I know that Sequoia is also going through their mid-cycle report this year. I know Woodside will go through theirs next year, but all the other, like the 6-year reports, should be viewable as well on their websites.
Great, I'll look for those. And then we're going to be getting ready for a board retreat in a few weeks. And one of the things you might think about are our goals. And I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on how you came up with your school goals and how you think about school goals versus district goals and versus the other schools' goals within the district. Just we've got all these different goals in different places, and kind of curious your perspective about why your goals are your goals and how you think about them in relation to other schools or the district.
It's a really good question. And actually, in the beginning of our site plan, which was presented in end of September, we're asked to sort of do an analysis of our school goals in relation to the district goals. And I think in the site plan, we actually sort of put each of our goal under a district goal umbrella, so that we are not necessarily in lockstep as far as the wording of our goals, but they are intertwined, so that we're not working at cross purposes. I think you'll see a lot of similarities between all the different sites. We're all really concerned about our groups that are underperforming, whether they be English language learners, socially economically disadvantaged students, special ed. Those are groups that we are perennially challenged to serve at the same level, to get results that are at the same level as the overall peer group. And I think that that's probably a common thread you'll see, that we're all striving to make sure we're reaching every student at each site. I'm really interested to see, to talk about goal number 3. That's kind of been a district interest lately, is social emotional learning and overall student mental health, and to see how that's going to develop over the next 3 years. I think that's going to be a huge area of growth. I think it's an ongoing conversation about what we want to accomplish, what our individual challenges are, versus the challenges at some of the other school sites as well. I don't know if Ralph is still on the call, if he wants to talk a little bit about our goals.
Yeah, so, I think your question was, how did we come up with the goals that we have listed on the report and our site plan? And in the beginning of the WASP process, we do an in-depth look at the data over the last couple of years prior to that visit. And then we also meet in groups with our teachers, different focus groups, and there's discussions that start with the data and then start with other information, and we just collect data and analysis, and we look at surveys, and we talk to teachers, and so we bring all that together. And that's really what the WASP plan really is looking at all of those data points from various places and seeing where we need to improve, where we're doing well, but also where we need to improve. And that is really what formulates our CANs, our critical areas of need. And then the action plans are formulated from achievement of those CANs.
No, thank you. I noticed that I think maybe we could, as we reconsider the district goals, maybe adopt some of the things we learned from the schools. I like to improve preparation as a focus of a goal, and the new, which is obviously new related to COVID, but transitioning out of COVID as a goal is also, I thought those were good.
Yeah, it's great that we collaborate, we learn from each other, and we really work together as a site and as schools. So absolutely.
Shanice?
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the report. I actually read the whole report today, and I have a couple of questions. A lot of my questions were answered earlier with the school highlight as it relates to attendance, because you guys talk about robust attendance program, and so I wanted to learn more about that. I wasn't quite clear in the report what attendance, maybe I'm getting my presentations mixed up, but what attendance looked like before. It sounds like you wanted to do more to improve your attendance. So just wanted to know more about the data around that. And then 2, when you did your CAN goal around students in post-secondary life, it has a lot of information around AP students. And so I am wondering, even special ed is students with IEPs and 504 plans, or even have some type of other plan. They also too can be prepared for college, right? Or for life afterwards. So how are you integrating that? Because I see a lot of highlights around AP, but then when I look at your data, the percentage of students with IEPs, I'm trying to figure out, or ELL, just wondering how you're integrating that in this, because there's so many opportunities for that doesn't need to be an IEP, but also how are you preparing for that? So those were my two big takeaways. And the last thing is that I do like number 4, and the appreciation for that goal particularly.
So I'll start with your first question, was really about attendance. I think one of the key pieces that we found to students being successful at school is they have to be there. And so that's something that you can always improve on as a measure. And last year, we hired an additional attendance clerk when we were live to make sure that the key was getting phone calls home so that families were aware when their students had been missing. And the additional person, both of our attendance clerks are bilingual, so that they can communicate with all of our families effectively and find out why the student was missing and encourage them to come back to school. This year, the attendance has become even, well, let's see, I hate to say more complicated, but we have different steps. If a student has missed class, 2 or 3 times, it's on the teacher, and then it goes to counselors to call home before it goes to the attendance clerk and up to administration to try and reach out to those families. So it's a multi-pronged, lots of people are involved on making sure students are in school so that we can improve the presence of students on campus. And then the second part,
sorry, Gay, can I just, with attendance, I'll just add one other thing that we try and do is involve PTSA. So, you saw Michelle Kelly here before. And so my communication with Michelle Kelly about informing parents of our attendance policies, making sure parents have the resources, making sure that we close that gap and inform and educate parents about our policies and procedures and how important it is for students to be in school. So that's the partnership with PTSA is also another piece to try and improve attendance overall.
The other part about, for example, SPED students, we've had some really rich conversations with the special ed department about using things like A through G and using AP courses as a data measure. Because in our report, one of the things we really wanted to ask ourselves is, what data do we want to have to track success of students? And so that's why we asked Dr. Wilmot to look at entrance rates for our students into 2-year and 4-year institutions, which I hope is there somewhere in the back of the report. And we found some actually kind of promising trends there with our special ed population entering 2-year institutions and even 4-year institutions. But one of the concerns that came from special ed to us is, what other measures can we have for student success besides A through G, besides AP, besides college entrance? And that's an ongoing conversation for us at our site. Obviously, there's other things that are in there, like CTE classes. Can we get students involved in those? More career education on campus so that students are aware of other options besides a 2-year or a 4-year school. And I think your question is a really good one, because it's the same question that we ask ourselves at the site about what data is relevant and what is it really telling us about the students that we're serving.
I'll just add a couple pieces to that. And, Gay talks about CTE and how that prepares students. Our business pathway has improved over the last couple of years, and it's gotten to a point where the students are preparing tax returns. And so they're learning how to prepare tax returns, because that's something you hear all the time. How come high school students aren't learning this? Well, that's one of the things that's been incorporated into our business pathway, where they actually take tax returns from local people, and they come on a volunteer basis and they help prepare those tax returns for them. The other piece is focusing on concurrent enrollment, because AP classes are not the only way to get college credit. So what are the opportunities that we can make available to students in concurrent enrollment, in dual enrollment, so they can get college credit at the high school level without having to take that AP class? Because if they can enroll in a class and they can get the college credit, maybe they can, the following year, they'll have more confidence to enroll in an AP class and moving forward. So those are some other areas that we look at, that it's not just about AP, it's about, the college credit through concurrent enrollment, dual enrollment, and then CTE courses that enrich the knowledge of students at post-high school life that have nothing to do with college.
Okay, thank you.
Bonnie, you had your hand up also. You took yourself off mute, but we're still not hearing you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry about that. So Ralph jumped in and saved me when I couldn't figure out my microphone at the beginning of this presentation, but I did want to give just a little bit of a 30,000 foot view on this, and it goes to what Trustee Jen was saying. So the state has been super good to us in the last few years because we in education have goals for everything. And they've done a really nice job of streamlining a little bit so that we're not trying to serve a million masters with that many different sets of goals. So for instance, the WASC that you're seeing right now, there are cans. There used to be something called ESLers, and there were two separate sets of goals in the same site plan, in the same WASC. They streamlined that, so now there's only one that you have to use in your WASC. They then took what used to be called the site plan. It's no longer called the site plan as of 3 years ago. It's called the school plan. And they aligned the school plan style of goals with the WASC style of goals. And then my favorite move so far, they took the school plans and the WASC plan and they aligned it with the sort of plan format that they wanted to see for the LCAP. So no pressure to any board members. Usually we start working on our LCAP and getting our community input in September. This year, the state announced you're not going to get the LCAP template until January, which we just did. So I figured it would be some sort of a transition because it's less time and because we're still dealing with the pandemic. I like WASC action plan goal 4 for that reason too, from Carlmont, but it didn't. It actually doesn't even mention the pandemic. It dives us right back into what our school goals are. And it's a new start where we're coming up with new goals or restating, yes, we want to keep working on these. We are not being given an extended timeline for finishing that document. Even though we've got 1 semester instead of a full year to do it, it still has to be presented to you by the first meeting in June, and it still has to be approved by the end of June. So you guys, no pressure, are going to need to go forth and give us our district goals or say, yes, we're continuing with these. We're going to replace some of these as soon as you thoughtfully can so that we can then go out and start having our stakeholder engagement meetings. So the good news is we are very aligned. As Gay already in her very first IVP WASC presentation did a darn good job with it. Alerted you, we are aligned across the district, but it is a little bit time sensitive, both for sites to do their school plan and more pivotally for us to do our LCAP, that you all tell us which way the ship is turning.
Well,
also, sorry, one more comment. In the past, you didn't get a full presentation on the mid-year reviews, but another change they've made is this is the first year that they are having school boards approve the mid-cycle reviews.
Great. Well, it's very fortunate that we're planning to go back to closed session after the end of open session, at least to take a quick 30,000 foot glance at the goals. It sounds like we're in perfect alignment with what we need to begin accelerating on dramatically. Okay. Carrie, do you have anything to throw in at this point? Okay. And I'll just say again, thank you for a great presentation. One of the things that I really feel when I read one of these WASC reports is how thoughtful, how careful, how much work is going into this from our sites at all times. There is nothing about the educational experience in the Sequoia Union High School District that is accidental or unthought. It is very intentional and the result of very hard work. And so for my one thought then, Ralph, I'll call due on that little break I gave you in the heads up. The two schedules that were called out in the WASC plan had basically 1 block day apiece and then 4 different variations on all of the periods in a given day as it has been in the past. And for this year, it has been, blocked 4 days a week and then 1 day of asynchronous. And we certainly heard from some of the teachers that were speaking earlier about ways in which they felt they were going slower and into more depth, and that they were finding a lot of student engagement coming from that. For you, does it feel like perhaps then there might well be 3 different flavors of block schedule that are on your plate to be looking at going forward now?
That's a great question, something that I think about often. I haven't had the opportunity to have real in-depth discussions with staff, but something that we are planning on doing is keeping the Bell schedule committee intact and inviting new members to participate, so we can ask these questions of the staff. We can see what the temperature of the staff is. And you're right, slowing down and I like to say that they're teaching skills. They're teaching important skills to be successful, not just paring down the curriculum, not just eliminating things, but they're focusing more on important skills that will be transitional for future success. So I think Andy Ramrod had said it. If there are fewer pressures to get the amount of content that we typically have, I think that you would see more openness to a block schedule or more block days from teachers. But the incredible pressure of having to fit all of this curriculum that's mandated to fit, sometimes they have a little stress on being able to fit that in those block days, because there are some subjects that really are difficult to handle some of the amount of curriculum without having to see the kids every day. So I think that you're going to see some more teachers that are probably more open to more block days than we were in the past. And thank goodness we started this process before we went into a distance learning, before the pandemic was around, because it really prepared the teachers to with some of these block lessons. Because if we went straight from a traditional schedule into this distance learning block schedule, I think it would have been a more difficult transition for our staff. So, I can't take credit for it, but it just happened to be good timing that we started this process of piloting some block schedules prior to this pandemic, because I think it made for an easier transition into the distance learning block schedule. And I know Gay has her hand up, and I'll let her speak to it as well.
One other thing that was stated tonight, I don't think Andy said it, I think maybe Ms. Tepp said it, in the block schedule that we've been working on this year in distance learning, is teachers have really appreciated Wednesdays. And I think that will become a big lever for them in making decisions moving forward about what they want the schedule to look like and what they want it to provide for. I think time in our new schedule, whatever we determine, time for teachers to work together is going to have a high value.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And one of the schedules we piloted had a teacher flex time included in it. And so I think that we will see more discussion about how beneficial that time is with each other moving forward. So.
Yeah, I think that's where I would echo, all of the other board members who have expressed a lot of excitement at seeing that goal number 4 of the transition out of distance learning and into the future, that it all ties very much together, that we are going to be taking an awful lot of learning and innovation and deeper understanding of a lot of old underlying issues as we go about building the new normal. And it's incumbent on all of us to make sure that new normal really reflects all of the wisdom and all of the learning that we've been doing, and that we dare to be bold and creative and play strongly on the successes that we're engendering, and not be afraid to make sure that the new normal is different in all the ways that it can be better. I appreciate that very much. All right, if there is no more comment, this is an approval. So I would welcome a motion from the board.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. Chris can have it. Chris did it.
Did I beat you? Good?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carlmont.
Thank you as well.
Good night.
Right. Okay, and then we move along to what hopefully will be some quick items. And the first is the approval of the 2021 tentative agreement with ASCME, OT&P, and M&O units.
So good evening. This is a tentative agreement that will place on the salary schedule a 2.5% raise for ASCME, M&O, OT&P, and we're asking for your approval.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All right, it sounded like Shani's got in there ahead of Chris that time. But I don't know who's got the time lag on which end of what. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, congratulations and thank you for the great work in getting this done. Item 14.4 is
This is the approval of the AB 1200. It's a little bit out of order. We probably should have done supervisors first, but this is the AB 1200, and the AB 1200 is just disclosure that when we are negotiating with a bargaining unit, we are required to seek approval from the County Office of Education that we actually have the money to pay for things. And so this is the AB 1200, which is submitted to San Mateo County Office of Ed for both M&O, OT&P, and the supervisors unit, and we're asking for your approval.
I have one question. What does it mean Sequoia is a Me Too district?
So a Me Too district, it's called a parity district is the more official name. And what it means is that we provide the same % raise for all of our employee groups.
Okay. Okay.
So once SDTA is negotiated, the others are Me Too or parity.
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
sounds like a lot of pressure on Ida. All right, other questions or comments or a movement? Motion.
I'll move to approve.
Somebody else want it? I'll take it. I'll second.
Great. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Unanimous again. And again, good work by all. Thank you. All right. And 14.5.
14.5 is the tentative agreement with our ASCME local 829, the supervisors unit. This is actually our smallest employee group. There's 7 employees that are in this group. So they are a parity group as well.
Questions, comments, or a motion?
I'll move to
Happy to move approval.
Let Chris have that motion this time.
It's fine.
But let's call Rich the second on that because it was almost a tie in favor of the runner.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, also approved. Hey, let's do one more just to round things out. 14.6.
14.6 is approval of salary increases for our management and underrepresented group. And again, this is a parity group of 2.5% on the salary schedules.
Questions up? Let's see.
You know,
Griselda
now,
had her hand up, and I missed that. So, Griselda. Ms. Horton, do you have something?
Hello. So I am stepped away from home and in my vehicle. So I just wanted to say thank you to the board and to the cabinet members. Number one, again, for the very speedy negotiation process. We truly appreciate it. And I'm speaking for OTMP and MNO. And in the absence of our newly retired Jerome Harris, the supervisor's unit, and business agent that wasn't able to make it tonight, also want to say thank you so much on their behalf and for a speedy and quick approval from the board.
Thank you. Edith.
Yeah, I wanted to thank Shawnice for asking the question about the Me Too or parity, which brings me to my question on item 14.6, which is that when the previous board elected to cap the benefits of unrepresented employees, that employee group received a 2% increase on their salary in exchange for that. Our understanding is that full benefit coverage has been returned to that employee group. And we see here that they are receiving the same 2.5 increase negotiated by SDTA and AFSCME's groups, which in essence puts them not in parity, but 2% ahead of the other employee groups in terms of salary. And so we are asking what the district's intention is to maintain the parity that was described by the assistant superintendent.
Crystal, did you want to address that or do you want me to address it?
We can both. I don't have all of the history as in when I began at the, as I started here at Sequoia. With that increase and tied to health benefits and with how the district is focusing on exiting CalPERS and our belief in savings there and how that will possibly result as to a monetary increase, because those are negotiated to leave CalPERS. It's the district's hope that we can correct and get us back into that Me Too movement upon the exit of CalPERS. If we do not exit CalPERS this year, we will have to address that 2% increase.
That's correct. And then we are right now in the process on the RFP for health benefits, medical benefits went out right before break, and the benefits committee will be analyzing the results of that RFP. I believe it's the first week of February, and then the intent would be to look at how that would affect the savings and how that would be used by the district. And then at that time, we would address the parity issue with management and unrepresented. And if we do not exit CalPERS, we would need to address that in the next round of negotiations with the group.
And I just want to clarify that any possible exit from CalPERS would not take place until the 2022 benefit year at the earliest. So the return of fully covered benefits is for the entirety of the 2021 benefit year. So even if we make it up at that point, there is still an issue of a full year here. And as you know, I'm not saying this because I want to cost anyone money. We were here arguing that the benefits should not have been capped and that cost should not have been shifted to our colleagues who are unrepresented at the time. But it makes it more difficult on us to feel that we're entering into those negotiations about CalPERS on an even foot if we know that there are decisions that the district has not taken and moves they have not made that are contingent upon us agreeing to exit CalPERS.
Okay, so I think that that gives us some information about the ongoing CalPERS discussion and a little richness to those discussions. Trustee Thompson?
So I raised my hand to recognize two things. One is to recognize Edith's comment and to support it, that there is that inequity at the moment, but it seems very fair that we would resolve that in the future. In the same way, there was a lag year where some in that group were disadvantaged financially as a result of the change in the cap that we haven't corrected for. The other was to make the more general point about each of these 4 raises at 2.5%. I think that I'm sure my colleagues agree with me in saying those raises, we're pleased that we have that funding to recognize the extraordinary work of each of our staff groups. It is well deserved, especially during these difficult years. And at the same time, I think we want to recognize that we come from a community that gives us a financial base that allows us to make those raises and still be very prudent in managing our resources. So kudos to the staff. You know, we always wish we could do as much as possible. Glad that we are able to have the 2.5% changes in salaries. If there aren't other comments, I'd be happy to move.
Well, I'd just like to build on what you said, Chris. I'd also agree that if there was something that was intended to be corrected in the future, that I think what I heard you say is you're in favor of it being corrected in the future, and I would agree with that comment as well.
Yes. Great. Mr. President, are you ready for a motion to approve?
Quite so.
So moved.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Unanimously passed again. Okay. Thank you all for this great bundle of work. And we're very happy to have these things settled for another year. And we look forward to the ongoing benefits negotiations to really help everybody out. All right, that brings us to item 15, Board of Trustees, Superintendent's comments, committee reports, and agenda setting. And
so I have several agenda setting comments.
Okay.
I know we have a retreat coming up.
Yeah.
So some things that I'm interested in discussing at the retreat, and I don't know how much time we're planning for the retreat. And I know there's some of you that have been thinking about an agenda. So this is our one perhaps opportunity to legally discuss the agenda for the retreat as a group. So I have a number of things I think I would put under what I would call the governance handbook items that we kind of discussed at the first meeting where Shanice and I joined, that a lot of them we said we'd punt to a retreat. And those include a formal rotation for presidency versus some other process. I know the governance handbook has a formal rotation. I'm interested in visiting that and perhaps looking at alternatives. We talked a little bit about communication and the board president communicating on behalf of the board. We got some feedback about Brown Act in that relation that I'm not sure is entirely accurate. So I want to revisit that. There's some specific things about the agenda and in specific there, I think it's in our governance handbook, Alan, that you read that long statement at the start of each meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be of the opinion that you only read it at your discretion when you think it's needed, because you've done it at some meetings when we knew there was not anyone going to make any comments and we still spend several minutes. I think maybe that could be more of at your discretion when needed. Same with the consent calendar. There's a statement you had there. I'm not sure, maybe with your consent. And then an area that I don't know if it goes in governance handbook or not, but we'd be political resolutions and just how we think about when we make the district, when we do things that are political in nature, like should we avoid those things? And because we have members of our community of all different politics, and to take a position on something that is not directly school related, but is political in nature and would be maybe supporting the majority of our community, but not supporting all of our community. Just thinking about what is our role, not as individuals, but as a group representing the district in taking positions on political resolutions. I don't think that's in the governance handbook, but maybe it could be. Maybe we don't want it there. Maybe we just want to do everything ad hoc when each thing comes through, but something that we could discuss as a group is sort of how do we think about, someone comes to something, maybe we all agree with it, but it's not related to the school. Do we support that kind of because it fits with our own personal beliefs, or do we only support things for the school or some other, just talking about resolutions in general. When and how would we use resolutions? And I just think it'd be good to talk about. So that's my governance handbook agenda items for the retreat. The other one would be goals. I think there's superintendent goals, which you referenced, Alan, that we might talk about in closed session. But then there's the goals that are like the district goals on the website. And I think what I heard from Bonnie is now might be a good time to at least reconsider or reaffirm those goals. I think the retreat would be the right place to do that. And the third thing I would say, something, I'll call it data requests, just thinking about how as a board we request data, what data do we want, why do we want it, just thinking in general, when we're going to ask the staff to work hard to put together a presentation and pull data for us, like how should we think about that in general? So I think, Chris, you and I talked about this a little bit. Maybe you can say it more clearly than I am, but I put data requests as a third area. So again, governance handbooks, I listed a number of things, goals, and data requests would be things I'd be interested in discussing in our retreat. And I'd be interested in what others are thinking for the retreat, and maybe we can have somewhat, because this is a time to talk about agenda setting, how you're thinking about the agenda for that retreat for those of you who are planning it. That's all for me.
Okay. Crystal, do you want to talk at all about the planning work for the retreat to this point? Just kind of at a high level.
We have scheduled for January 30th. I hope you're all early risers. I was going to send this out. Looks like we'll be starting about 8 a.m. So make sure you have a full pot of coffee. And I think most of the things, Rich, that you had mentioned were also on my list, and from talking to both Sarver and to Carrie about that as well. So governance handbook, this is our first opportunity, right, to be together as a group and as a new governance team. So really be able to get to know each other and what our styles are, what the roles of the board are, since we have new board members, the relationship with the superintendent. So the governance handbook is on there. And though I do have some other notes, I can continue to add to these notes since they are in front of me as you all continue to share what you're looking for out of that day.
Okay. Carrie.
Yeah, just to add on to this topic, I do think we need a full day. We've always been rushed at our past retreats. So I am very open to a full day, but I need to make sure that everybody else is as well.
Carrie, when you say full day, do you mean how many hours? What are you?
Because
I don't know what the past looked like.
Well, the very first retreat, I think we had 2 hours or something. We've gotten a little longer and longer, but it's always been 3 or 4 hours. So for me, I would do 8 to 5, but even like Crystal, if that's too long for you, maybe there could be some time where just the board's together. Because I know that's probably is hard for you on a Saturday. You work so hard. But I feel like we're consistently rushed when we do anything like this. So that's my 2 cents. And I was going to add one other thing about, I lost my second thing. It probably will come back to me, but just more time is very important to me, at least.
Okay.
I have a question around equity. I know that there was a lot of work that the board did around equity and coming up with a plan and didn't get to the definition. So it feels like some of these things are still lingering. And I don't know if it belongs at the retreat or if it belongs at a typical meeting to discuss, but just trying to figure out where are we with that, especially if the idea and philosophy around equity is not just a one-shot deal. It's actually embedded in so much of the work that you all have been doing for a few years now. So I'm just wondering, where's the loose ends with that, and how do we get that back on agenda, or how do we need to, like, what do we do with that?
So I think I'll say I support Carrie. I'm flexible on time. I'm willing to do whatever. I appreciate when we get a chance to talk as a group. So I'm flexible on timing. And Shanice, I think what you're saying on the goal on equity, it currently is one of the goals, and
Okay.
I'm interested also to think about the wording of that goal, and then the what behind the words too.
Yeah.
Okay. Chris, do you have something to add at this point?
I'll lend my support to each of the items that Rich has raised. Would say I'm flexible about the amount of time that we devote to this retreat. My inclination is to let the agenda define the amount of time, because otherwise I think we expand to fill time that's there. But to the extent that Carrie is shaking her head the other way, I note that Alan and Carrie are setting up the agenda, and so they can define how much time they believe.
It's just never worked before. So after 9 years, I'm reluctant to give that a try again.
Well, as I said, that is my inclination, is to say, figure out what the agenda is, and then make sure you're devoting enough time to it, rather than working at it and say, we're going to devote 8 hours to
Well, you can always leave early
to the subject. My understanding, I do think we need to, I would like at this retreat to at least begin the conversation or address the question Shanice raised about where we are on addressing equity and what the next step is. Maybe not tackling it then, but at least saying, where are we going from there? We had begun work with a facilitator, and frankly, I don't know where that next step is. So I have a lot of questions about that as well. That's it for me.
Okay. And I would throw in, I think, in addition to just talking about, the formal rotation for the presidency, and another part of that that Rich had brought up was the structure of the 3 roles of president, vice president, clerk, and whether that is the most appropriate set of roles to have on the board, or whether a president and a second position that satisfies the job descriptions of both vice president and clerk rolled together makes better sense, and how that ties into the president, the rotation, and what goes on. Also, I think a good thing to touch on, at least as a starting for ongoing conversation, tied in with the goals, is whether we are well served by preparing to launch into a full strategic plan at this point, or how soon we would be at the right time to do that, and some looking forward as to whether where we are on the path toward another bond measure. what the needs are, what the position planning timing might be, whether it's entirely right or entirely wrong.
I'll just say maybe something like facilities needs might be more of a regular board meeting presentation on facilities than a retreat, but I'm open to me, retreat is more goal internal, and that while very important to me is more of a regular, but I'm flexible on that.
Okay. All right.
I mainly, again, just because facilities could be a big, where have we been? What might we do? That could be a very long, that could be like almost a study session at a regular.
Yeah, I would agree. I would keep that away from the retreat. I agree that it's goals. And I think the other thing I was thinking about is, and thinking about our new superintendent, is direction to the superintendent. I've never been thrilled, or I'll just say it like that. I don't think I've been thrilled with how we set direction, or even when we're setting direction. I'm not clear. Like at times there are major initiatives that kind of roll out, and I don't remember us really talking about things as a board. So setting direction with the superintendent is something I have a lot of interest in, to be prepared for the new person.
I think I agree with you. And I would maybe put it as generally working together as a leadership team, and that we all kind of broadly working together as a leadership team is how I would think about what you just said. And I agree that it's important.
So what I can do is I can organize this, condense, because it kind of falls under some points, and then I can share that with Alan and Carrie, and then share that with all of the trustees. Does that sound like a plan over the next few days? Okay.
Okay, I know that part of the impetus of going to an 8 o'clock start was at least one board member had conflicts later in the afternoon. Are there some hard stops on how late we could go, given Terry's suggestion of 8 to 5 being a target?
I have no hard stop.
Okay. Nor do I.
I might need a break in between. There's something going on in my personal life during that time. And so I'll talk to Crystal about that. I mean, I just need a break between a certain time. And then come back and finish up.
Or we could pick
a break is totally fine.
Or we could pick another day if that's not a good day for you, right?
Crystal has had a hard time finding another day.
Okay.
We would, if we do pick a different day, we'd be looking possibly we would definitely be looking into February, unless
we need to wait that long.
Okay.
So we'll talk, Crystal, because I'm gonna need like at least an hour and a half break, because I have something going on in the middle of the day for my family.
Is that because of the facilitator? Because I would be open to changing facilitators if that's why we could not reschedule.
So one of the things that I learned a little late in the game, right, is that when you have confirmation of probably getting new board members, that superintendents secure facilitators back in September. So we were a little preoccupied at that time, and so this was our kind of going down the facilitator request that we had. This was Eric's only availability in January. I was trying to get this sooner than later because some of this is time sensitive. One of the other facilitators that we were looking at was Nicole Miller, because she does have, is that her last name? I don't
Anderson.
know. No, Anderson. I don't know why I said Miller. My apologies. Does have a lot of CSBA training. Luann is not available until after May, so I'm trying to secure some dates for a possible second retreat as well for you all with the new superintendent.
So
Is
I
it
think
clear to everybody that we want a facilitator?
Well, the other idea is there are other facilitators. We've had Dana Tom in the past. There's other people that we could.
I mean, instead of just
potentially look
like
at.
we have these things we could talk about, I feel like we could talk about these things without someone facilitating our discussion. But
There's always has to be a leader, right? So, I mean, maybe we could probably even get somebody in, right, just to keep things going so you don't get stuck, and you don't really want the president or the superintendent also leading, right?
So I would think that this group can probably be pretty flexible around a break in the middle of the day as well.
Yeah, I need an hour between 1 and 2. That's just what I need.
Well, an hour, yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that kind of gives us the guidelines of how we can firm this up from there. All right, if there aren't other things on the retreat at this point, although, continue to please feel free to give additional feedback to the superintendent so that, nothing gets overlooked. But I do have a couple of other items, or at least one other item of agenda setting, and I don't know if anybody else does. And this one ties in a little bit through correspondence as well. We have received a couple of different student correspondence, one of which relates to what Edith was talking about during her report earlier, that we have gotten two different, one single student and a student group who are youth climate ambassadors working with San Mateo County Office of Education, requesting the opportunity to make presentations to the board about climate and environmental issues. And Connie Gong and a group of students that she represents would like to bring forward that same environmental resolution that SDTA has supported. But also another student, Brandon Wee, wants to bring forward a presentation on a environmental or an energy dashboard for Menlo Atherton High School as part of a Youth Climate Ambassador project. And I believe also, Crystal, you've received a communication from a third student about another environmentally related presentation and request. And what I'd like to suggest to the board is that rather than just kind of fielding these each individually or putting them on a back burner, that we look toward putting together an environmental presentation and action for the board at an upcoming meeting, where we get a chance to listen to the three presentations and also perhaps ask staff to give us a presentation about environmentally oriented projects that have been going on, and the work we have been doing in the district and the work that we intend to be doing in the district, so that not only are we considering resolutions, but we're considering the arc of environmental work as part of the fabric of what the district is doing, and really make it be a meaningful embracing of what these students have to bring to us. So I wanted to present that suggestion to see if that is a way we want to go about looking forward for a time to implement that. Are there additional board support for that?
Yes.
I'm seeing Carrie and Chris at least saying yes, so that's three, which justifies a little bit of board work or staff work in preparation. And Crystal, I know you've done some thinking about some of the work that might be involved, and clearly this is not just a real quick slide them in our otherwise empty agendas.
We could, as far as the district goes, we could provide a history of where we're kind of at. As far as the direction moving forward, that really comes out of one of my jobs, and I'm sorry, I just don't have the capacity to focus on that. I can give you a plan. We've kind of briefly talked about it. You know, when we were talking about reopening the facilities master plan, right? And possibly a new bond. So we could talk about it like high level. Obviously I have my notes and my dreams that I could share. So I think we could definitely do something, and it's important to get our students in front of us so that we can hear their advocacy, especially regarding the environment.
Would it be easier? I've always been interested in just recycling. I mean, I think it's ridiculous that we don't recycle in a big way in the district. Would that be easier to talk about maybe the challenges of recycling and what each site does?
So I don't have that information. So I would have to gather that information. So that would be some work, or I'd have to try to figure out what staff is able to do around that. I know that these students are pretty specific to what they're looking for. The student that I have met with is it's about solar. And so they're looking for big change, right? They're looking for energy savings, water savings, alternative uses of power, and so forth. So, but there could potentially be a recycling component to the conversation.
All right, well, let's explore a little bit in our three-way agenda setting sessions about how that might shape up and how soon we would be in a position to get what under the agenda to reflect this. And it may be that, you know, we have a student-led kind of kickoff sooner and more follow-up governance team discussions later. The other thing I wanted to add, and Crystal, I had mentioned this to you in a one-on-one earlier, which is that I think since we do have our our governance calendar always attached to the future agenda items, I think that the bottom of the governance calendar might be a really effective place to kind of keep a parking lot kind of list of the agenda items that have been raised in our board sessions. So it's very formal and public and clear of what we have committed to add to the agenda, and it's right there in our guiding document, so that we'll make sure that things don't get forgotten and that they're highly visible, that we're working on those. And just wanted to check that there's board agreement that would be a good way of capturing and formalizing that.
I think that's a good idea, Alan.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right. Is there other input from board members on this topic at this point?
I guess just who are you planning to plan the next board meeting with?
At this point, still continuing with Carrie in the role, that we haven't changed up what president, vice president, and clerk mean at this point, but we will certainly talk about that in depth in the retreat, and that would be when we might recalibrate on that.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I think if we're done then with this item, that brings us to adjournment, which is adjournment back to closed session. And we'll want to come back out at the end of closed session to make a report out in the remainder of the open session. So Rick, if the open session can remain available to us for that as well, we'll do both. And I I don't believe we're planning to go hours in closed session, but we will return there for now. So with that, do we have a motion for adjournment to closed session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
See you over there in closed session. Good evening, everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.